Chapter 4082. All right. The Great Supremacy nodded, bowed, and retreated to the main hall, closing the door. Please sit. The human race supremacy looked at Qin Feiyang and the other four and pointed at the wooden stools beside the tea table. The five of them sat down. Qin Feiyang and the human race supremacy sat opposite each other. The frenzy, white-eyed wolf, Li Feng, and Mu Qing sat on either side of Qin Feiyang. Sometimes, there were hidden mysteries in the seats they sat in. If it was any other time, or when friends gathered, they could sit however they wanted without any rules. But at this time, there had to be a hierarchy. Of course. The hierarchy here didn't represent the difference in status. In other words, Qin Feiyang sat in the middle, facing the human race supremacy, but it didn't mean that he was superior to the frenzy and the others. Because to Qin Feiyang and the others, no matter how strong or weak you were, they were all friends and partners, and their status was the same. And at this moment, the so-called hierarchy actually represented the candidate to negotiate with the human race supremacy. Among the five, Qin Feiyang was more meticulous, so Qin Feiyang was the leader to negotiate with the human race supremacy. And the main negotiator had to face the other party face to face to show respect to the other party. Of course. The frenzy, white-eyed wolf, Mu Qing, and Li Feng weren't easy to deal with, and they definitely had the ability to negotiate. However, whether it was in the past or now, as long as Qin Feiyang was present, they couldn't be bothered to waste their energy and gave Qin Feiyang full authority to deal with it. You guys are really impressive, giving us a show of strength as soon as you came to Mount Supreme. The human race supremacy shook his head as he poured 5 cups of tea and pushed them in front of Qin Feiyang and the others. The white-eyed wolf looked at the teacup with disdain, then took out a jar of unparalleled divine wine and said to the frenzy and the others, "Do you guys want it?" Yes. The 3 nodded. The white-eyed wolf took out another 3 people and threw them to them. Then, the 4 of them began to drink leisurely. They didn't even spare a glance at the divine tea in the teacups, which made the human supremes feel rather awkward. However, when he saw Qin Feiyang pick up the teacup and taste it with an experienced look, he felt a lot better. Finally, there was someone who knew what was good for them. But he didn't know. It wasn't that white-eyed wolf and the others didn't know what was good for them. It was that they weren't interested in tea at all. Not bad. Qin Feiyang nodded in satisfaction. This kind of divine tea was refreshing, making one feel as if they were standing under a cool sea breeze, leaving a rich aftertaste. It seems that little brother is really a tea lover. The supreme being of the human race chuckled. He had thought that Qin Feiyang was pretending. I don't have any other hobbies. I just like this. Qin Feiyang smiled faintly. After tasting it for a while, he said, "Senior, this time it wasn't us who deliberately wanted to show off. It was your Supreme Mountain's disciples who were too blind. It was indeed Zhao Hong who provoked us first. But, you killed him just like that. How would our Supreme Mountain face the world in the future?" The human supremes shook his head and sighed. You naturally have to pay the price for doing something wrong. This is the rule. Qin Feiyang said. Then what about your actions in the Divine Kingdom? Looting the spirit veins and crystal veins of 51 cities, breaking into the Divine Island, and greatly damaging the Divine race's vitality. Isn't this a mistake? The human supremes asked. If the Divine Kingdom didn't invade the Sky Cloud realm, would these things still happen? This is the so-called karma. The Divine Kingdom committed a heinous crime in the Sky Cloud realm. Our Sky Cloud realm came to collect the debt. Is this a mistake? Qin Feiyang chuckled. The 4 of them looked at each other. The smell of gunpowder had already appeared. Young man, you really have a glib tongue. The human supremes smiled bitterly. No. What this junior said is the truth. No matter what we did in the Divine Kingdom, you have no right to blame us. Because this is the evil karma that you planted with your own hands. Qin Feiyang shook his head. Although he didn't witness the Divine Kingdom's first invasion of the Sky Cloud realm, it wasn't hard to imagine how tragic the battle was from what the Little Rabbit, Feather Emperor, and others said. These were all the sins committed by the Divine Kingdom. Blood for blood, everyone understood the principle of blood. Frankly speaking, his current attitude towards the Divine Kingdom was already very benevolent. If it was someone else with his strength, they would definitely massacre the Divine Kingdom. Evil karma, the human supremes murmured and couldn't help but sigh. In the past, he didn't feel anything because he wasn't from the Sky Cloud realm. But now, seeing Qin Feiyang and others break into the Divine Kingdom and make the Divine Kingdom face the crisis of the Sky Cloud realm back then, he realized that in the past, the Divine Kingdom had indeed caused too much damage to the Sky Cloud realm. Qin Feiyang put down the teacup and said with a smile, "Please forgive this junior for saying something offensive. Although you are the human supremes, your awareness is far from enough." Hearing this, a trace of suspicion crawled on the face of the human supremes. Whether it is the Divine Kingdom or the Sky Cloud realm, as long as one is a human, they belong to the human race. But as the human supremes, not only did you not protect them, you even helped the evildoers to harm them. May I ask, are you really competent as the human supremes? Are you worthy of the title of the human supremes? Qin Feiyang asked again and again, leaving the human supreme speechless. My ancestor, the human emperor. Like you, he was the leader of the human race of the Sky Cloud realm. Although I have not seen him with my own eyes, I am sure that if it were him, he would never harm the human race of the Divine Kingdom. Not to mention the human emperor, just my ancestor, Qin Batian, how much did he sacrifice for the world in his life? If you have the chance in the future, you can go to the Great Qin, the Forgotten Continent, and the ancient world to see how the people of these places praise him. No. Not only the human race, but the other races also respect him. This is a person who truly cares for the world. Maybe now you see me desperately protecting the Sky Cloud realm and think that I am very great, but in fact, compared to my ancestor, I am nothing. Qin Feiyang smiled faintly and said it lightly, but in the ears of the human supremes, it was like a bolt from the blue. Thinking back to what he had done in the past, he was indeed ashamed of the title of the human supremes. A true human supremes should have no boundaries, no distinction between worlds, and could protect all the humans in the world. Let's get back to the topic. Why did you ask us to come to Mount Supreme? Qin Feiyang asked with a smile. It could be seen that the human supreme's faith had been shaken, but this kind of thing could not be rushed. He had to be given a time to adapt. Heard. The human supremes took a deep breath and sincerely begged, I hope that you can leave the Divine Kingdom. Leave the Divine Kingdom? Madman and the others were stunned. What kind of joke was this? They had come here after a narrow escape, how could they leave just like that? Qin Feiyang took a sip of tea and chuckled, do you think it is possible? Impossible. The human supremes smiled bitterly. If it was him, he would not leave the Divine Kingdom so easily. Qin Feiyang shook his head and laughed. He put down the teacup and looked at the human supreme seriously, you want us to leave the Divine Kingdom because you are worried that we will destroy the Divine Kingdom. Actually, I have a better proposal here. What proposal? The human supremes was suspicious. Join forces with us and get rid of the Divine Kingdom's ruler. Qin Feiyang said. Without hiding anything. His words were filled with killing intent. What? The human supremes suddenly stood up and looked at Qin Feiyang in shock. The target of this group of people was actually the Divine Kingdom's ruler. Qin Feiyang said, at this point, I will not hide it from you. Our purpose in coming to the Divine Kingdom is to destroy the Divine Kingdom. Destroy the Divine Kingdom. The human supremes was shocked. That's right. Destroy the divine kingdom. In other words, destroy this world. Make the divine kingdom disappear from this world. Qin Feiyang said. You, the human supremes, was extremely shocked. Destroying the divine kingdom was even more shocking than killing the ruler. Because killing the ruler, even if it was successful, only one person would die. But destroying the divine kingdom was destroying the entire world and all the living beings here. Everything would turn into dust. But to be honest, I really can't bear to destroy all the living beings in the divine kingdom, so I set my sights on the divine kingdom's ruler. After all, there is a good saying, every injustice has its perpetrator and every debt has its debtor. At the same time, I also think highly of you. If you are willing to cooperate with us, when we get rid of the divine kingdom's ruler, this world will be under your control. As the ruler of the divine kingdom, you will be able to rebuild the order of the divine kingdom. At that time, the grudges between the divine kingdom and the sky cloud realm will not only be buried, but also become partners that help and support each other. Compared to killing each other, isn't this better? Qin Feiyang asked with a smile. This information was too huge for the human supremes. Waves were rolling in his heart, unable to calm down. Killing the ruler, he didn't even dare to think about such a thing. After a long time, he calmed down and asked, "Why do you think so highly of me?" Because of the power of faith. As the ruler of the divine kingdom, even he didn't get the power of faith. Instead, you, a human, got the faith of the living beings of the divine kingdom. Why is that? This is because you are indeed a person who sincerely cares about the common people. Having you rule the divine kingdom, I think it should be a blessing for the living beings of the divine kingdom. Qin Feiyang smiled. You also know about the power of faith? The human supremes were surprised. I know a little. I believe you should also know that I have an independent world. Maybe soon, I will also be able to control the power of faith. Qin Feiyang smiled faintly. The Black Tortoise realm was no secret in the Sky Cloud realm. Therefore, people like Jiang Yunshuang and Ryuko had already inquired about it in the Black Tortoise realm. I have indeed heard of your Black Tortoise realm. The human supremes nodded. Qin Feiyang said, "Let me add one more thing. If this continues, I'm afraid we won't need to do anything. You, the human supremes, may die in the hands of the ruler of the divine kingdom." Die in the hands of the ruler? The human supremes were stunned. Madman and the other three also looked at Qin Feiyang in confusion. The human supremes was the subordinate of the divine kingdom's ruler. He was loyal and powerful. How could the ruler of the divine kingdom attack him? This was a bit unreasonable. Chapter 4083. Qin Feiyang glanced at the madman and the others before looking at the human race supreme being. I'm not trying to scare you. The reason why I dare to say this is because I have proof. What proof? The human race supreme being frowned. It's still the power of faith. Qin Feiyang's eyes flashed. The power of faith, the human race supreme being murmured. The madman and the others were also pondering. Suddenly, the madman's eyes lit up as he looked at Qin Feiyang and said, "I think I already understand what you mean. I remember that the young man said that the power of faith will become stronger and stronger until it can even threaten the ruler." That's right. Qin Feiyang nodded and looked at the human race supreme being with a smile. Although you have the power of faith now, you might not understand the power of faith as well as we do. The human race supreme being became more and more confused. He really didn't know that it could threaten the ruler. If the living beings of the world are compared to water, then this world is a boat. The water can carry the boat, but it can also overturn it. The faith and will of the living beings of the world can support this world, but it can also overturn this world. Think about it, with the personality of the divine kingdom's ruler, will he allow such a thing to happen? I can tell him with certainty that he won't. He hasn't done anything to you now because the power of faith you have hasn't reached the point where it can threaten him. Furthermore, you are very strong. For now, you still have a lot of value. But if one day he discovers that you have become a threat to him, he will definitely get rid of you at the first moment. Qin Feiyang said. The human race supreme being's pupils contracted. Of course. You will definitely say that you are not afraid of death. But have you ever thought that after you die, the divine kingdom's ruler will choose a new leader of the human race? Can you guarantee that this new leader will treat the living beings of the world well? If he really treats the living beings of the world well, then that's fine. But if he is a tyrant, then it will definitely be a scene of misery and suffering. Senior, can you bear to see this happen? Qin Feiyang closed in step by step, causing the hearts of the human race's supremes to be in a mess. Now that you've won the trust and faith of all the living beings in the world, you should stand up and do something for them. Even if the chances are slim, we should still try to fight for it. This is what a true human paragon should be like. Qin Feiyang sighed. The supreme master of the human clan lowered his head in silence. Qin Feiyang didn't say anything else. Madman and the other three were also silent. Inside the hall, green smoke rose from the teapot on the tea table, and the hall gradually fell into a dead silence. Several hundred breaths passed. Seeing that the supreme being of the human clan had yet to speak, Qin Feiyang smiled faintly and said, "You don't have to be in a hurry. You can take your time to think about it. This time, I have come here to ask you about another matter. Although there was a famous saying to strike while the iron was hot, sometimes, when faced with some things, one really could not be impatient. Wasn't there another famous saying? Haste makes waste." The supreme being of the human clan took a deep breath, looked up at Qin Feiyang, and asked, "What is it?" Qin Feiyang looked at Mu Qing. Mu Qing waved his hand, and the top of a giant mountain appeared in the void beside him. There was a tea garden on the top of the mountain, and it was full of divine tea trees. This was the place where Ji Shaoyi was found by him using the all-seeing eye. Looking at this place, the pupils of the supreme being of the human clan immediately shrank. This vision was clearly captured by Qin Feiyang and the others, and they thought that it must be an extremely terrifying place. After all, even the supreme being of the human clan seemed to be afraid of it. "How did you know about this place?" The supreme being of the human clan asked. This is the scene that Mu Qing saw when he checked Ji Shaoyi's whereabouts with the all-seeing eye. Qin Feiyang did not hide it. The supreme being of the human clan looked at Mu Qing and exclaimed, "The all-seeing eye is indeed extraordinary, but, you'd better not go to this place." Why? The five of them were suspicious. Because this is a place that even the divine king and I don't dare to set foot in. The supreme being of the human clan had a serious expression. Qin Feiyang and the others were shocked. If even the supreme being of the human clan and the divine king didn't dare to set foot in this place, then how dangerous was it? Qin Feiyang, not good. Suddenly, Mu Qing's eyes trembled. What's wrong? Qin Feiyang and the others looked at him in shock. Mu Qing said in a deep voice, "The divine king and the king are bringing people to Mount Supreme." He had been using the all-seeing eye to spy on the whereabouts of the king and the divine king. At this moment, the two giants were gathering the experts of their clans and preparing to rush to Mount Supreme. How did they know that we were at Mount Supreme? Li Feng frowned. The God race and the purple gold divine dragon clan have spies all over the divine kingdom. Mu Qing killed Zhao Hong at Mount Supreme. How could such a big commotion be hidden from them? A cold light flashed in the mad scientist's eyes. Then what do we do now? Li Feng was worried. Retreat. The mad scientist immediately stood up. Mu Qing, the white-eyed wolf and Li Feng also stood up. All-seeing eye, the supreme being of the human clan looked at Mu Qing. Another powerful opponent. No. In a sense, Mu Qin was more terrifying than Qin Feiyang and the others. Qin Feiyang and the others were terrifying because they killed enemies. In other words, they were terrifying on the battlefield. But outside the battlefield, Mu Qin was a bigger threat. Qin Feiyang asked, "Senior, one last question. What is the strongest battle soul that Ji Shaoyi, Lu Zhongtian and Zhuang Mingyue have? You can even find out the battle souls of Jiang Yunshuang and the other two. Do you still need to ask me?" The supreme being of the human clan shook his head. "Don't be so stubborn, okay? If you are afraid of the ruler, there is no need to do so now. Because the ruler has already left the divine kingdom." The mad scientist frowned. The ruler has already left the divine kingdom? The supreme being of the human clan was surprised. Nonsense. If he still left the divine kingdom, would we dare to openly discuss this with you? The mad scientist rolled his eyes. Then where is he now? The supreme being of the human clan asked. Nether King Hell. He shouldn't be able to return in 10,000 years. The white-eyed wolf laughed coldly. The supreme being of the human clan was shocked. No wonder this group of people became so unscrupulous. It turned out that the ruler had already left the divine kingdom. However, why did the ruler leave the divine kingdom? The danger that Qin Feiyang and the others brought to the divine kingdom was obvious to all. Even if the ruler was being held back by the ice dragon and the heaven-devouring beast, he should have stayed in the divine kingdom to pay attention to the situation. Suddenly, his body shook. That's right. The ice dragon and the heaven-devouring beast. The ruler's departure was most likely out of his own will. The mad scientist looked at the supreme being of the human clan and was about to speak. Qin Feiyang reached out his hand to stop the mad scientist and smiled, "Then senior, please think about it carefully. This junior and the others will take our leave." Saying so, he looked at Li Feng. Li Feng understood and opened a space-time tunnel. The group of 5 quickly left. Not long after they left, accompanied by powerful auras, the ruler and the divine king's group arrived. Without any hesitation, his divine sense enveloped Mount Supreme. But in the end, they couldn't find any trace of Qin Feiyang's group. "Divine King, ruler, come in and talk." The voice of the supreme being of the human clan sounded in the main hall, and the tightly shut door slowly opened. The ruler and the supreme being looked at each other and immediately entered the main hall, disappearing. Heavenly Lord Ji and the other powerhouses stayed outside and talked with the various sovereigns of Mount Supreme. Qingtian City. Outside the city. The mad scientist said angrily, "We didn't find anything, this trip was completely in vain." It wasn't in vain. Qin Feiyang shook his head and smiled. "What do you mean?" The mad scientist frowned. "Didn't you notice? The supreme being of the human clan has begun to waver. Now, we just need an opportunity." Qin Feiyang smiled slightly. "What kind of opportunity do we need?" The mad scientist was suspicious. "This is possible. We still need the ruler of the divine kingdom to help us. If the ruler of the divine kingdom really does something to him, it is equivalent to forcing him to rebel. And I believe that this day will come sooner or later." Qin Feiyang chuckled. If what the young man said is true, then the supreme being of the human clan will indeed be killed sooner or later. At that time, we can take the opportunity to save him. Then, wouldn't we be able to make the supreme being of the human clan our partner? The white-eyed wolf laughed. The mad scientist pondered for a while and nodded. "That makes sense." Qin Feiyang said, "Now, let's split up." Split up? Qin Feiyang and the others were stunned. "Senior brother, white-eyed wolf, immediately go to the North Continent and find a way to find out about Ji Shaoyi's battle soul and where he is now. But remember, don't be impulsive. Wait for us. Qin Feiyang reminded. Okay. The mad scientist nodded and asked suspiciously, but what are you going to do? Qin Feiyang smiled and said, find a chance to meet the Divine King and see if we can complete the deal. When the mad scientist and the white-eyed wolf heard this, they immediately looked forward to it. If they could complete the deal, then they would be able to obtain the inheritance of the 3 ultimate profound laws. Then be careful. The ingrate warned before turning around and tearing through the sky like a bolt of lightning with madman. After watching the two leave, Qin Feiyang turned to Mu Qing and said with a smile, now, I will have to trouble you to spy on the whereabouts of the Divine King and the mad scientist. Leave it to me. Mu Qing smiled. After the all-seeing eye evolved, she had become more confident than before. Chapter 4084. Late at night. It was extremely quiet in the mountains. Qin Feiyang and Li Feng were both sitting cross-legged on the ground. Below them was a time formation. This was the time law of 5,000 years in a day, and it was personally set up by Qin Feiyang. Now that he had grasped the ultimate meaning of the time law, he could naturally set up a time formation. Don't say. Setting up a time formation with his own hands still gave him a sense of accomplishment. Suddenly, Mu Qing's eyes flashed, and she turned to look at Qin Feiyang and Li Feng, who were resting with their eyes closed, and said, the Divine King and the King have already left Mount Supreme. The two opened their eyes one after another. Li Feng looked up at the waning moon in the night sky and frowned. They actually stayed at Mount Supreme for an entire day. They can't be plotting something, right? I don't know if they are plotting anything. But one thing is certain, the king and the Divine King must have already heard about the ruler leaving the Divine Kingdom from the human sovereign. Qin Feiyang smiled faintly and turned to Mu Qing. Where did the Divine King go? Straight back to the Island of Gods. The king has also returned to the North Continent. The human sovereign is still at Mount Supreme. Mu Qing said. All right. Li Feng, let's go to the Island of Gods now. Qin Feiyang's eyes flashed. The Island of Gods. Like a giant beast, it floated in the night sky, making people feel intimidated. In a hall. The Divine King and the 10 sovereigns of the God race were gathered here. The Divine King looked at the 10 sovereigns and said, I gathered you here in the middle of the night because I have a few things to discuss with you. The 10 sovereigns were silent, waiting for him to continue. Today, I discussed a lot of issues with the Divine Kingdom and the human sovereign at Mount Supreme. One of the most serious issues is that the ruler of the Divine Kingdom has already left the Divine Kingdom. The Divine King said. What? The 10 venerables immediately fell into chaos. The Divine King raised his eyebrows and said angrily, you are one of the 10 great venerables of the God race, second only to one and above all. How can you be so flustered? What is this? My lord, it's not our fault. The Creator is the pillar of the Divine Kingdom. Now that the pillar has left, how can we not panic? The God clan Great Venerable sighed. I can understand. That's why I'm telling you in advance so that you can be mentally prepared. From now on, the situation in the Divine Kingdom will definitely become more serious. Because without the sovereign, Qin Feiyang and the others will be even more unbridled. The Divine King clenched his fists, his eyes filled with hatred. Where is the sovereign now? When will he return? The 10 reverends of the God clan asked. Hades, hell. I believe all of you have heard of this place. The Divine King said. I've heard of it. Back then, Ji Yunhai led a group of people to kill their way into hell. The Blood Demon King used the power of his entire clan to stop him. In the end, both sides suffered great losses. The Great Venerables nodded. Hades is a continent in the lower realm of the Sky Cloud realm. The sovereign's presence in Hades must have something to do with the ice dragon and the heaven-devouring beast. In other words, it will be difficult for the sovereign to return to the divine kingdom within 10,000 years. The divine king sighed. The great venerable asked doubtfully, "How did you know about this?" Qin Feiyang was the one who told the human race supremes about this. And this Qin Feiyang, the killing intent in the divine king's eyes intensified as he said this. That person by Qin Feiyang's side called Mu Qing has already stolen Jiang Zishan's all-seeing eye. All of this was seen by Mu Qing with the all-seeing eye. Bastard! The 10 great venerables were furious. If Jiang Zishan's all-seeing eye had been stolen, then Jiang Yunshuang and Jiang Xing's eye of life and eye of evil must have been stolen as well. Compared to anger, we should be more afraid now. Eye of heaven, eye of despair, all-seeing eye, eye of evil, eye of life. Now, the sky cloud realm already has the 5 strongest battle souls, and they have all evolved successfully. It's not an exaggeration to say that if these 5 people join forces, let alone encircle them, I'm afraid even tracking their whereabouts will be as difficult as ascending to the heavens. The divine king let out a long sigh, feeling powerless. Hearing this, the 10 great venerables also fell silent. Yes. Back then, only Qin Feiyang and the demon ancestor were so difficult to deal with, let alone now. There were 3 more people with the strongest battle souls. And now, the sovereign was not here. Was the divine kingdom really going to decline? They were unwilling. If the entire sky cloud realm had invaded the divine kingdom, they could still accept it. But now, it was just a few young people. A few young people had shaken the foundation of the entire divine kingdom. Just thinking about it made them feel ridiculous. The divine king took a deep breath, looked at the 10 great venerables, and said, "So the second thing I want to ask you, are we still going to rescue Jiang Yunshuang and the others?" "Of course." The 10 great venerables said without hesitation. Because he was Jiang Yunshuang's great-grandfather. Jiang Yunshuang was also the most outstanding young person in his lineage. However, the other 9 great venerables were silent. "What are you doing?" Although Shuang Er's battle soul has been taken away, her talent is still there. As long as she is nurtured well, in time, she will be able to master the will of heaven. Moreover, Shuang usually treats you with respect, and you should know in your heart how filial she is. Now that she is in trouble, are you just going to watch her die? The 10 venerables glared at the other 9 great venerables. One of the venerables sighed and said, "We don't deny Jiang Yunshuang's talent, but without the strongest fighting soul, his achievements will be limited." "Old 8, your words are too heartless. What do you mean by limited achievements? Back then, when you were young, you didn't have the strongest fighting soul, but didn't you still enjoy the resources and treatment that others dreamed of?" The 10 venerables said furiously. The 8th venerable lord glanced at the 10th venerable lord and lowered his head in silence. Actually, the most important thing is still the inheritance of the ultimate profound. If you want to rescue the 3 of them, you'll have to exchange for the inheritance of 3 ultimate profundities of ultimate laws. 3 legacies, this is not something that ordinary resources can compare to. The God Clan Great Venerable shook his head. "I admit it. But now, Shuang has mastered the ultimate profundity of the 3 ultimate laws. Jiang Xing and Jiang Zishan also mastered 2 ultimate profundities of ultimate laws. Could it be that his talent is still not comparable to the 3 successions? No matter what, I won't give up on saving them. If you don't save them, I'll think of a way myself." The attitude of the 10 venerables was very firm. "What can you do?" The divine king looked at him. "I don't know yet, but there will always be a way." The 10th venerable lord said in a deep voice. Boom! But at this moment, a rumbling sound rang out in the sky. "Who's there?" Immediately after, a shout rang out. The divine king and the 10 venerables looked at each other and immediately walked out of the main hall. They saw that there was a big hole in the barrier in the sky above. An enforcer stood in the sky and scanned the surroundings. In his hand, he was holding a piece of paper. "What's going on?" the Divine King asked. The enforcer landed in front of the Divine King and the others and said respectfully, "Lord Divine King, someone blasted open the barrier earlier, but this person disappeared too quickly. I didn't see his face clearly, but I found a letter." After saying that, he bowed and handed the letter to the Divine King. The Divine King took the letter and opened it. There was a line of words written on it. 3 days later, in the middle of the night, please go to the 1,000 Phoenix Mountain alone for a chat, Divine King. "Who's so bold?" One of the venerables frowned. "Do you still need to think? It must be Qin Feiyang and those little bastards." The Divine King clenched his 5 fingers and the letter was torn to pieces. His eyes were extremely gloomy. It was simply too arrogant to come and go as they pleased in the sacred land of the god race. The 10 venerables' expressions were also extremely ugly. They had never seen such an arrogant person. "You can leave." The Divine King looked at the enforcer and said. The enforcer bowed and left. The Deity King looked at the 10 reverends and said in a deep voice, "They want me to go to the 1,000 Phoenix Mountain alone. It should be to exchange for Jiang Yunshuang and the other 2. Now, make your stand. Will you save them or not?" "We must save them," the 10 venerables said. The venerables of the god race looked at the 10 venerables and sighed. "Save them. Otherwise, the people below will probably talk about us behind our backs and say that we're cold-blooded and heartless." The other 8 venerables looked at each other and sighed helplessly. If they didn't save them, they might really be cursed in the future. "Since all of you have agreed, I'll send a message to the king and the supremes of the human race now and ask them for the inheritance of the laws." The Divine King took a deep breath and entered the main hall. 3 days later. Late at night. The 1,000 Phoenix Mountain was a steep mountain range in the west of the South Continent. The ferocious beasts there were very powerful. Ordinary people wouldn't dare to set foot there. But at this moment, a figure descended on the mountain peak like a ghost and couldn't be captured. "Where is he? Is he playing with me?" It was a woman with a hint of anger in her tone. It was the Divine King. At the same time, outside the mountain range, in a dense forest, 3 young men stood side by side. "How is it?" the leader asked. It was Qin Feiyang. Mu Qing smiled and said, "The king, the supremes of the human race, Heavenly Lord Ji and the venerables of the other races are all hiding in the Divine King's space divine item. They know that we have the all-seeing eye, but they still did such a childish thing. Don't you think it's funny?" Li Feng sneered. "They're betting that we'll let our guard down. If we're careless and don't use the all-seeing eye, won't we fall into their trap?" Qin Feiyang smiled faintly. "If that's the case, then they've underestimated us." Li Feng's face was full of disdain. "Since the Divine King doesn't listen to us, then let's teach him a lesson. Let's go to the Divine Island." A cold light flashed in Qin Feiyang's eyes. If he didn't teach these people a lesson, they wouldn't remember. Boom! Soon. With a loud rumbling sound, the Divine Island floating in the night sky was torn apart. There weren't many casualties among the god race. Soon. The Divine King and the others received the news. Damned little bastard. The Divine King and the 10 venerables of the god race were instantly enraged. "I told you that it's impossible to encircle them now." The supremes of the human race sighed. They didn't hurt the god race, nor did they take away the spirit vein or the crystal vein. They only destroyed the Divine Island. Seems like they're warning us. The king also shook his head and smiled wryly. He looked at the Divine King and said, "Let's deal with them honestly." Then, he opened a passage and left with Heavenly Lord Ji and the others. The supremes of the human race also returned to the West Continent with the overlords of the human race. At the top of the mountain, the supremes of the human race pulled a long face. The 10 venerables clenched their fists and tried to control their anger. Chapter 4085. What's wrong with you all? You all look so pale. Tell us, who provoked you, we'll help you vent your anger. Suddenly, a burst of laughter rang out, and 3 figures descended on the mountain peak. It was Qin Feiyang and the other 2. The one who spoke was Li Feng. With the appearance of the 3, the Divine King and the 10 venerables of the God clan immediately glared at each other. Why are you still glaring at us? We didn't provoke you. Mu Qing looked at the group of people with a mocking look. The Divine King said angrily, You dare to say that what happened on the island before has nothing to do with you? What happened on the island before? Why didn't we receive any news? Mu Qing looked at Li Feng and asked. I don't know. Li Feng shook his head. The Divine King's face was livid. How dare he play dumb in front of her? Okay. No matter what, they are also seniors. As juniors, we can't be so rude. Qin Feiyang raised his hand to stop the 2 of them. He looked at the Divine King and the 10 honorable ones and said apologetically, I'm sorry, these 2 brothers of mine are not very sensible. I apologize to the seniors on their behalf. Cut the crap. Let's make a deal. The Divine King suppressed the anger in his heart. Straightforward. Qin Feiyang smiled. With a wave of his hand, Jiang Yunshuang and the other 2 appeared. However, at this moment, the 3 of them were in a coma. Because their Qi was destroyed, they couldn't sense any cultivation aura on their bodies. This was naturally deliberately done by Qin Feiyang and the other 2. In this way, they could cover up the fact that their laws were stolen. However, to be honest, at this moment, they were still a little nervous. After all, the Divine King and the 10 venerables were all old and shrewd people. They weren't so easy to fool. What did you do to them? The 10 venerables said angrily. Not only did they stink, but they also couldn't sense their cultivation. Well, when I asked them to hand over their fighting souls, they were unwilling to cooperate, so I destroyed their sea of qi and suppressed them in the soul-sealing valley. Qin Feiyang said with a smile. Do you still have any humanity left? The 10 venerables were so angry that they almost vomited blood. He also knew about Soul Seal Valley. The news that Ryuko, Jiangchen, and the others had been suppressed in the soul-sealing valley had long spread throughout the Divine Kingdom. For a prodigy like Jiang Yunshuang, being suppressed in the soul-sealing valley was more painful than death, let alone losing face. Human nature? Humph. When you invaded the Sky Cloud realm, why didn't you reflect on yourselves? Do you have any humanity? Cut the crap. If you want to trade, then hurry up. If you don't want to trade, then I'll kill them now. A cold light flashed in Qin Feiyang's eyes. He was more than happy to bicker with these people. Because bickering could distract these people's attention. As Qin Feiyang's voice fell, Li Feng waved his hand, and the space-time law rolled out, enveloping Jiang Yunshuang and the other 2. The 3's lives were hanging by a thread. This was also discussed in advance. Not giving the Divine King and the others time to think. In other words, using the lives of Jiang Yunshuang and the other 2 to force the Divine King and the others to quickly complete the trade. Sure enough. Seeing Li Feng's move, the Divine King and the 10 venerables' faces changed. The Divine King immediately took out 3 palm-sized iron boxes. Qin Feiyang said playfully, Don't tell me that these are all the inheritances of the ultimate meaning of the death law. It seems that the inheritances given to you by the ruler last time were very unsatisfactory. The Divine King sneered. At first, it was indeed unpleasant. But in the end, we were quite satisfied. Qin Feiyang and the other two had a hint of ridicule at the corner of their mouths. The Divine King frowned. What does that mean? You will understand in the future. Qin Feiyang chuckled and said casually, open the boxes and let us take a look. The Divine King waved his hand and the 3 iron boxes opened. The aura of the 3 laws instantly surged out like a tidal wave. The law of death, the law of destruction, and the law of devour. Looking at these 3 inheritances, Qin Feiyang's eyes flashed. It seems that the Divine King and the others really didn't have many inheritances of the ultimate meaning. Otherwise, they would have been given the same inheritances as last time. Give them the people. Qin Feiyang looked at Li Feng and smiled. Li Feng waved his hand and the unconscious Jiang Yunshuang and the other 2 immediately flew towards the Divine King and the 10 venerables. The Divine King also waved his hand. The 3 iron boxes turned into streaks of light and flew towards Qin Feiyang and the others. To be honest, the Divine King and the 10 venerables didn't dare to play any tricks at the moment. Because the monarch and the human supremes had left with their people, the Divine King and the 10 venerables couldn't fight with the current Qin Feiyang at all. Making an honest deal was the wisest choice. With the 3 inheritances in hand, Qin Feiyang's lips curled into a smile. Li Feng and Mu Qing looked at each other with bright smiles on their faces. It went smoother than expected. On the other side, the 10 venerables also immediately protected Jiang Yunshuang and the other 2. The 10 venerables looked at the injuries on Jiang Yunshuang's body and felt distressed. They immediately activated the law of life and streams of majestic life energy immediately flowed into the 3's bodies. The 3's injuries immediately healed at a visible speed. The ultimate meaning of the law of life. Qin Feiyang stared at the 10 venerables with glittering eyes. Compared to other ultimate laws, the law of life was even rarer. Because the law of life not only had extremely strong killing power, but also had amazing healing abilities. It could be said that, as long as one mastered the ultimate meaning of the law of life, there would be no need for elixirs in the future. Qin Dage, should we kill them? Li Feng looked at Jiang Yunshuang and the other 2, who were gradually getting better and about to wake up, and asked telepathically. We've already made the arrangements in advance. Do you think we should kill them or not? Qin Feiyang snickered secretly. As long as it was a hidden danger, it had to be eliminated. Because with Jiang Yunshuang's character, once the tiger returned to the mountain, he would definitely think of ways to take revenge in the future. He didn't want to be remembered like this forever. At this moment, Jiang Yunshuang and the other 2's eyelids twitched, and then they opened their eyes one after another. Great-grandfather, Lord Divine King, the 3 looked at the Divine King and the others with a trace of joy on their faces. But then, they got up with a venomous look. Great-grandfather, Lord Divine King, you must seek justice for us. Qin Feiyang and the others not only took away our battle souls, but also our ultimate meaning. Jiang Yunshuang roared. What? Hearing this, the Divine King and the 10 venerables' expressions changed, and they immediately turned to look at Qin Feiyang. Don't get me wrong, they did it willingly. Qin Feiyang smiled calmly. Yes. Ultimate profound meanings can only be extracted from them if they are willing. If they don't want to, it's useless for us to force them. Li Feng chuckled. The Divine King and the 10 venerables frowned. What he said made sense. We didn't do it willingly. They forced us to do it. Jiang Xing roared and told them one by one about how the white-eyed wolf, Li Feng, and Mu Qing had forced them to do it. You damn bastards, you're too shameless. We're irreconcilable. The 10 venerables stared at Qin Feiyang and the other 2 and roared like thunder, their eyes full of killing intent. Irreconcilable, the 3 of them looked at each other, and a thought-provoking smile appeared on their faces. The Divine King was also very angry, but suddenly, a trace of surprise appeared on her face. The transaction had been completed, so why didn't Qin Feiyang and the other two leave? Could it be, not good? Let's go. She roared and immediately swept up a group of people, activated the moment of time, turned around, and flew away. As expected of the Divine King. She reacted so quickly. Qin Feiyang whispered. But he didn't chase after them and just watched the Divine King escape with a group of people. Mu Qing and Li Feng's faces were also full of ridicule. With Qin Feiyang's character, would he give them a chance to escape? What's going on? They didn't chase after us? Am I thinking too much? The Divine King was shocked. But suddenly, a terrifying aura burst out from the mountains and rivers around them. The Divine King and the others were startled. They hurriedly looked up and saw many people flashing out from the mountains and rivers around them with destructive energy. And these people's appearances were exactly the same as Qin Feiyang. 3,000 clones. The Grand Venerables of the God race exclaimed. Qin Feiyang, what are you doing? The Divine King was furious. Nothing serious. I just want to kill Jiang Yunshuang and the other two. Qin Feiyang smiled faintly. The Divine King was immediately enraged and shouted, You've already taken away their battle souls and ultimate arcana, and you still want to kill them? Qin Feiyang, Li Feng, and Mu Qing surrounded them step by step. He shook his head and sighed. Speaking of which, it's actually your Dominator's fault. The Dominator? The Divine King was shocked. How did this have anything to do with the Dominator? If he hadn't tricked us and given us more than a dozen identical inheritances, we wouldn't have come to kill Jiang Yunshuang and the other two. Qin Feiyang sighed. What do you mean? The Divine King was confused. It was impossible to escape. The 3,000 clones had already surrounded them aggressively. Even though she and the 10 Venerables were present, they didn't have the courage to fight head-on. The only people in the entire Divine Kingdom who could compete with Qin Feiyang were the purple-gold Divine Dragons. Because only the purple-gold Divine Dragons had 3,000 clones. I can't tell you this because it will affect my future plans. I'll give you a chance now. Kill Jiang Yunshuang and the other two and I'll let you go. Qin Feiyang smiled. Plans? The Divine King's eyes trembled. What plans did this person have? Don't even think about it. The 10 Venerables roared. Boom! The 6 ultimate mysteries were activated, and the will of heavenly Tao erupted. You're overestimating yourself. One of the clones sneered and activated the ultimate mysteries of life and death. As the will of heavenly Tao erupted, it immediately crushed over. Poof! The 10 Venerables' body and mind trembled as they spurted blood. Their faces were filled with horror. Was this the power of the life law? It was indeed invincible. However, the God race wasn't that easy to bully. Boom! The furious 10 Venerables took a step forward, and the mark of the God race between their eyebrows erupted with dazzling divine light. The ultimate mysteries of the 6 ultimate laws reappeared. Under the double blessing of the will of heavenly Tao and the mark of the God race, the lethality was almost close to the ultimate mysteries of life and death. But in the end, it was still a little lacking. The mark of the God race was comparable to the root of all evil. The root of all evil was inferior to the law of life and death. The mark of the God race was naturally inferior to the law of life and death. He couldn't even defeat one of Qin Feiyang's clones. What else could he do? Boom! Accompanied by a loud bang, the 10 Venerables was once again seriously injured by the clones. Fortunately, he had mastered the law of life, otherwise he would have fallen to the ground. Chapter 4086. The 1,000 Phoenix Mountain had already collapsed. Terrifying battle waves roared in all directions. The mountains and rivers in all directions were crazily shattered, as if it was the end of the world. In the sky, the wind howled. The 10 sovereigns half knelt in the void, blood flowing from the corners of their mouths. The divine king and the other 9 sovereigns' expressions were extremely grave. Jiang Yunshuang was even more so. The strength that Qin Feiyang had displayed now far surpassed what he had displayed in the sky cloud boundary. In the past, she still had the courage to fight. But now, looking at Qin Feiyang, only fear was left in her heart. The atmosphere was extremely solemn. The 3,000 incarnations, Li Feng and Mu Qing, exuded a murderous aura. Only Qin Feiyang was as calm as ever. But this calmness made the divine king and the others even more afraid. One last thing. Kill them and I'll spare your lives. Qin Feiyang said. You've gone too far. The divine king was furious. Wasn't it the same as humiliating them to kill the juniors of their clan? Although Jiang Yunshuang and the other 2's battle souls and ultimate ultimacies had been taken away, their talents were still there, and they had exchanged 3 inheritances for them. If they really killed them, wouldn't it be a double loss? You won't listen when I talk to you nicely? Qin Feiyang's eyes suddenly turned cold. Boom! Accompanied by a terrifying aura, the 3,000 incarnations activated the ultimate ultimacies of the law of life and death at the same time. The 3,000 kingdoms of life and death were like 3,000 worlds descending. Coupled with the will of the heavenly path, they exuded a divine power that could destroy heaven and earth. The divine king was just about to attack when he saw the 3,000 kingdoms of life and death appear. An uncontrollable fear emerged in his heart. The 10 sovereigns and Jiang Yunshuang and the other 2 were also terrified. Was this Qin Feiyang's current strength? Even if they all attacked together and awakened the high-grade sovereign divine weapon, it would be meaningless. Although the divine master and the 10 sovereigns all had the will of the heavenly path and the god clan's mark, they only had slightly more than 60 ultimate ultimacies. How many times was the difference between 60 and 3,000 ultimacies? This was a one-sided situation. Not good. The monarch and the sovereign of the human race have returned. But at this moment, Mu Qing's pupils shrank as she turned to look at Qin Feiyang. Upon hearing this, Qin Feiyang's brows furrowed slightly as he swept his gaze toward the 3,000 clones. Kill! The 3,000 clones understood and roared at the same time. The 3,000 kingdoms of life and death immediately attacked the divine king and the others with a terrifying power. Everyone, hold on! The divine king roared. With a wave of his hand, he sent Jiang Yunshuang and the other 2 into the spatial divine item. She also heard Mu Qing's words. As long as they could hold on until the monarch and the supremes of the human race arrived, the crisis would naturally be resolved. He's really going to protect them with his life. Qin Feiyang narrowed his eyes slightly. The more the divine king acted like this, the more he wanted to kill Jiang Yunshuang and the others. Boom! After sending Jiang Yunshuang and the others into the spatial divine item, the divine king and the 10 sovereigns activated their ultimate intents. Just like the monarch, the divine king also grasped the ultimate intents of the 7 ultimate laws. The 10 sovereigns grasped the ultimate intents of the 6 ultimate laws. With a total of 67 ultimate intents, together with the mark of the god race and the will of the heavens, they could sweep through everything. However, 67 ultimate intents seemed insignificant in front of the 3,000 kingdoms of life and death. Boom! With a series of earth-shattering explosions, the 67 ultimate intents of the divine king and the others instantly collapsed like a piece of dead wood. The 3,000 kingdoms of life and death charged forward. Clang! At this critical moment, a treasure mirror appeared. This item was about the size of a cattail leaf fan. The frame was as white as jade, and there was a divine dragon on the left and a divine phoenix on the right. The shape of the mirror was like a long and narrow eye. Divine light flashed and illuminated the sky. The Dragon Phoenix Treasure Realm. This was the Divine King's high-grade sovereign weapon. Boom! A terrifying aura of a ruler of Tao burst out of his body and protected the godly emperor and the 10 martial highnesses like a surging tide. He indeed has a high-grade sovereign weapon. Mu Qing's and Li Feng's pupils contracted. Although Li Feng's current strength wasn't bad, he didn't dare to act rashly in front of a high-grade sovereign weapon. This was because a high-grade sovereign weapon was comparable to 100 low-grade sovereign weapons, which meant that it was equivalent to 100 ultimate intents of the ultimate laws. It could be said that, without the 3,000 clones, even Qin Feiyang, who grasped the ultimate intents of the law of life and death, wouldn't dare to fight against a high-grade sovereign weapon. Therefore, one couldn't underestimate the power of a high-grade sovereign weapon just because Qin Feiyang had the ability to crush it. In short, as long as they didn't encounter the 3,000 clones, the high-grade sovereign weapon was invincible. However, at this moment, the misfortune of the Divine King and the others was already decided. Not only did Qin Feiyang have 3,000 clones, but he also grasped the ultimate intents of the law of life and death. Boom! The 3,000 kingdoms of life and death charged forward. Kacha! Along with a shattering sound, the Dragon Phoenix mirror shattered into pieces on the spot, completely unable to resist. The 10 supremacies' expressions changed, and they immediately activated the law of life. However, even the law of life, which had reached the ultimate intents, couldn't save their lives. Accompanied by a series of screams, the bodies of the Divine King and the 10 supremacies were shattered one after another. Kacha! Another shattering sound rang out, and a spatial divine item appeared from the shattered body of the Divine King. It was directly shattered by the 3,000 realms of life and death. Jiang Yunshuang and the other two fell out of it in a sorry state. Right now, they were only at the lesser and greater mastery sovereign realm. How could they resist the 3,000 realms of life and death? In just an instant, accompanied by desperate screams, the three were completely destroyed. Not even a strand of hair was left. Shuang, The 10 supremacies' divine souls roared, their teeth bared and their eyes cracked. The Divine King and the other 9 supremacies were also burning with anger. But at the same time, there was also a deep sense of helplessness in their hearts. With the current Qin Feiyang, not to mention the prodigies of the younger generation, even people of the older generation like them did not have the power to fight back. Have mercy! In the blink of an eye. At this moment, space-time tunnels appeared one after another. The monarch and the human race supremacy shouted at the same time from the space-time tunnels. Qin Feiyang glanced at the space-time tunnels with a faint smile in his eyes. He turned to Li Feng and said, "Let's go." Li Feng immediately opened a space-time tunnel. The three turned and walked in without looking back. The 3,000 clones also collapsed, but the 3,000 realms of life and death didn't disappear. They attacked the Divine King and the 10 supremacies' divine souls. Just as the three left, the monarch and the others appeared from the space-time tunnel. Seeing the Divine King and the others' situation, the monarch and the human race supremacies' expressions changed. Swoosh! Without hesitation, the monarch and heavenly lord Ji activated the 3,000 clones. The human race supremacy also activated the power of faith. The rest of the human race and the purple-gold divine dragon race powerhouses also attacked. In the end, although they successfully protected the Divine King and the 10 supremacies' divine souls, the monarch and the other powerhouses were also fatally injured. The group of people fled the battlefield at lightning speed. They turned around and looked at the 1,000 Phoenix Mountain that had become a chaotic zone, their faces full of fear. It was too terrifying. Now, with just Qin Feiyang's power alone, he could destroy the entire god race. The human race supremacy looked at the Divine King and the 10 supremacy's divine souls and sighed. Fortunately, we decided to return at the last minute. Otherwise, it would have been disastrous. Yes. If we had been one step later, the Divine King and the 10 supremacies would have died without a doubt. Heavenly Lord Ji nodded. Is that really the case? The monarch whispered. What do you mean? Heavenly Lord Ji and the others looked at the monarch in confusion. In my opinion, Qin Feiyang didn't intend to kill the Divine King and the 10 supremacies at all. Otherwise, he wouldn't have given us a chance to rescue the Divine King. The monarch said. The human race supremacy looked at the monarch and then at the Divine King and the others' divine souls. He nodded and said, I think so too. He was already merciful. When everyone heard this, they could not help frowning. He was merciful to the Divine King and the 10 supremacies. What was Qin Feiyang planning? The Divine King and the 10 supremacies' injuries were too serious. Even though their divine souls were saved, they were already unconscious. The monarch and the human race supremacy discussed for a while and asked Heavenly Lord Ji and the others to escort the Divine King and the 10 supremacies' divine souls to the island. After the group left, only the monarch and the human race supremacy were left. Supremacy. Do you think they have the potential to do so in the future? The monarch asked. I don't know. The human race supremacy shook his head. Sigh. It's really confusing. Although Qin Feiyang has shown great potential and strength, he still has to face the dominator of the Divine Kingdom in the future. It's really too risky to bet on him now. The monarch sighed. It would be fine if he won the bet. But if he lost, not only the purple gold divine tribe but also the entire human race in the Divine Kingdom would be wiped out. It would be too easy for the dominator of the Divine Kingdom to destroy them. Let's wait and see. At least for now, they haven't started a massacre in the Divine Kingdom. Besides, don't forget about the Central Dynasty. Although the dominator isn't here and you're the dominator of the Divine Kingdom in name, if the people of the Central Dynasty show up, even you, the monarch, have to listen to their orders. Besides, apart from the Central Dynasty, there are also the Beast race and the Sea race. You and I both know how loyal the Sea race and the Beast race are to the dominator, and their strength can't be underestimated. The human race supremacy was worried. The future situation was worrying. The Sea race, the Beast race, the Central Dynasty, the monarch murmured. The human race supremacy's meaning was quite obvious. Before he had full confidence, he couldn't make a decision easily. Otherwise, it would bring disaster to his race. Qingtian City. In the mountains outside the city. Great! Mu Qing couldn't stop laughing. Not only did they kill Jiang Yunshuang and the other two, but they also successfully obtained 3 inheritances. Now they could go to Longqin and unlock the seals of the 3 iron boxes. Li Feng was also full of smiles. But suddenly, he frowned slightly, looked at Qin Feiyang and Mu Qing, and asked, what if Longqin doesn't admit it? After all, he didn't see us killing Jiang Yunshuang and the other 2 with his own eyes. Chapter 4087. Don't worry, I've already prepared. Mu Qing chuckled and took out a divine sound transmission stone from her bosom. Huh? Li Feng was stunned and asked, you've already recorded it? Of course. Just in case. Mu Qing nodded. And you have foresight. Li Feng was impressed. Compared to these people, there was still a gap. Because at that time, he didn't think about it at all. Mu Qing smiled and said, why don't we go to Longqin now and help you unlock the seals of the 3 iron boxes? This, Li Feng pondered for a while and shook his head. I'd better wait a little longer and help Brother Crazy and Brother Wolf unlock the seals first. Because Crazy only lacked 3 ultimate mysteries of the strongest laws. White-Eyed Wolf only lacked 2 ultimate mysteries of the strongest laws. If he helped them unlock the seals first, they could directly master the will of heaven. As for Li Feng, he only mastered 2 ultimate mysteries of the strongest laws, namely the space-time law and the time law. So even if he unlocked the seals of the 3 iron boxes, he couldn't master the will of heaven. That's true. At present, what we need the most is a powerhouse who can master the will of heaven. Mu Qing nodded. Qin Feiyang smiled faintly and handed the 3 inheritances to Mu Qing. For me? Mu Qing was stunned. Yes. Mu Tianyang already has 6 ultimate mysteries of the strongest laws, so it's naturally your turn next. You can integrate these 3 inheritances first, and we'll slowly think of a way for the remaining 3. Qin Feiyang smiled slightly. Thank you. Mu Qing took the 3 inheritances. These 3 inheritances were the destruction law, the death law, and the devour law. As long as he integrated these 3 inheritances, even without the will of heaven, he would be able to fight against the heaven's pride of the divine kingdom in the future without the help of the flame magic sword. But you'll have to wait a little longer for the integration. Qin Feiyang said. I understand. We still have to meet up with the madman and the white-eyed wolf. Mu Qing nodded and smiled. She put away the 3 inheritances and immediately activated her all-seeing eye to check the whereabouts of the mad scientist and the white-eyed wolf. Very soon. He could see where the 2 of them were at the moment, but the corner of his mouth couldn't help but twitch. What is it? Qin Feiyang and Li Feng were suspicious. Mu Qing said, they are actually drinking in a restaurant. Ugh. Li Feng was stunned. Didn't he ask them to gather information? Why did he go to a restaurant? If they are in a restaurant, then it means that they are not slacking off, because restaurants are the best place to gather information. Let's just wait for the good news. Qin Feiyang smiled and led the 2 into the Black Tortoise world. In the blink of an eye. Thousands of years passed in the Black Tortoise world. But in the outside world, only 1 day had passed. Boom! On this day. Suddenly, a terrifying aura erupted from the Devil's Land. Auspicious clouds rolled over and shrouded the sky. A wave of heavenly Tao pressure roared in all directions. This is, Qin Feiyang walked out of the ancient castle and looked at the sky in surprise. The will of heavenly Tao. When he closed his eyes and released his perception, he soon found the person who had broken through. It was Long Qin. At this moment, Long Qin was sitting cross-legged under a tree of creation in the herb field. His expression was extremely serene, and his body was surrounded by the power of the 6 strongest laws. They were the death law, space-time law, time law, cause and effect law, destruction law, and the last strongest law was the nothingness law. Swish! Soon. The will of heavenly Tao descended and went straight to Long Qin. It was also at this moment that Long Qin opened his eyes and looked at the descending will of heavenly Tao, his eyes full of joy. It turns out to be this woman. Li Feng and Mu Qing also walked out. Sensing Long Qin's aura, their eyes were full of envy. There is no hurry. It's only a matter of time before you guys do it. Qin Feiyang smiled faintly, swept up the 2 of them, and instantly landed beside Long Qin. At this moment, the will of heavenly Tao had already integrated into Long Qin's body, and the auspicious clouds were gradually dissipating. Congratulations! Qin Feiyang chuckled. For them, it was naturally a joyous thing that Long Qin had mastered the will of heavenly Tao, because this meant that their overall strength had increased by a large margin. It's a matter of course, there's nothing to congratulate. Long Qin waved his hand, got up, and patted the dust off his clothes, but the pride in his expression was clearly visible. Li Feng pursed his lips and looked at Long Qin, saying, "Your brother should be there soon." Him? When Long Qin heard this, he said proudly, "It's still too early for him." In the past, when we asked him to integrate the inheritance, he looked disdainful, saying that he had to rely on himself to comprehend. In the end, when I integrated 4 inheritances, he didn't even comprehend one ultimate meaning. This attitude of yours won't do. Your brother wants to comprehend it himself because he has ambition. Li Feng despised him. Can ambition feed you? Moreover, didn't he still choose to integrate the inheritances now? You people are courting death for no reason. You don't want a ready-made one and insist on showing off. Long Qin snorted coldly. Hey, hey, hey. Just talk about your brother, don't drag us into it, okay? Mu Qing's face darkened. I'm giving you face by talking about you. I can't be bothered to talk about ordinary people. Long Qin raised his head, looking insufferably arrogant, making Mu Qing feel helpless. If it was in the past, if Long Qin showed such an attitude, no one would feel comfortable in their hearts. But now, instead, they felt that it was a little cute. Let me show you something. Mu Qing took out the divine voice transmission stone and displayed the scene of Jiang Yunshuang and the other 2 in the void in front of them. You guys are so fast. Long Qin was dumbfounded. She originally planned to deal with Jiang Yunshuang personally after she came out of seclusion. If we don't act quickly, how can we show our sincerity? Can you help us unlock the seals of the 3 iron boxes now? Li Feng asked with a smile. Long Qin heard this and looked at Li Feng with a trace of playfulness in her eyes. Li Feng's eyelids twitched and he hurriedly said, "A man of character keeps his word. Don't go back on your words." "I'm a little girl," Long Qin said in a teasing tone. The corners of Li Feng's mouth twitched. Did a woman have the right to go back on her words? Cough, cough. Brother, haven't you heard of this saying? In this world, only women and villains are difficult to deal with. Mu Qing patted Li Feng's shoulder and said meaningfully. Sigh. Li Feng sighed. A woman's heart was like a needle at the bottom of the sea. This saying was indeed true. Qin Feiyang did not say anything about this matter. He would wait until he met the white-eyed wolf and the lunatic and let them settle it themselves. Perhaps, when the white-eyed wolf made a move, there would be an unexpected effect. Buzz. Suddenly, the divine sound transmission stone rang. Qin Feiyang was stunned and quickly took out the divine sound transmission stone. The phantoms of the lunatic and the white-eyed wolf immediately appeared. This damn woman is also here? The white-eyed wolf looked at Long Qin in surprise. Who are you scolding? Scold me again if you dare. Long Qin stared at the white-eyed wolf angrily. I'm scolding you. What can you do? The white-eyed wolf bared its teeth, looking provocative. Wait and see. Long Qin gritted her teeth. She was already thinking about how to teach this wolf cub a lesson later. Qin Feiyang looked at the white-eyed wolf playfully. This guy still didn't know that Long Qin had already mastered the will of heaven. When they meet later, there will definitely be a good show to watch. The white-eyed wolf also noticed Qin Feiyang's strange eyes and couldn't help but have an uneasy premonition. How's the investigation? Qin Feiyang asked with a smile. With us taking action, is there anything we can't handle? The white-eyed wolf smiled proudly and said, we have already inquired clearly. Ji Shaoi's battle soul is the eye of destiny. We have also investigated Lu Zhongtian and Zhuang Mingyue's battle souls. Lu Zhongtian has the eye of destruction, and Zhuang Mingyue has the eye of oblivion. Eye of destiny, eye of destruction, eye of oblivion, Qin Feiyang murmured. On their side, the eye of oblivion was Lin Yi. The eye of destruction was Lu Zhengyang. Now, Lin Yi and Lu Zhengyang weren't in the divine kingdom. If they wanted to snatch them, they would have to capture Zhuang Mingyue and Lu Zhongtian and bring them back to the sky cloud realm. Did you find out who owns the Eye of Reincarnation and the Eye of Nothingness? Qin Feiyang asked. Of the 10 strongest battle souls, 8 of them had already appeared. Only the Eye of Reincarnation and the Eye of Nothingness were still missing. We have also inquired. But there is no information about the Eye of Reincarnation and the Eye of Nothingness. So we guessed that the Eye of Reincarnation and the Eye of Nothingness might not be in the Divine Kingdom. Madman said. Not in the Divine Kingdom? Qin Feiyang was slightly taken aback and frowned. Could it be in the Sky Cloud realm? But we have been in the Sky Cloud realm all these years and have never heard of anyone possessing the Eye of Reincarnation and the Eye of Nothingness. I don't know. Anyway, at present, there is no news about the Eye of Reincarnation and the Eye of Nothingness in the Divine Kingdom. Madman shook his head. Then let's ignore these 2 battle souls for the time being. Have you inquired about where Ji Shaoi is now? Qin Feiyang asked. Yes. Madman nodded. Qin Feiyang's eyes flashed and said, Give me the coordinates, we will meet up with you immediately. North Continent. At this time. It was noon. The scorching sun was in the sky. In the west, there was an extremely remote mountain range. Here, the mountains were towering and the vegetation was vigorous. Around the mountain range, there were many small villages. The people who lived here were no different from ordinary mortals. Deep in the mountain range. On a mountain peak. 2 young men, with their auras restrained, stood beside a big tree like ghosts, looking at a village not far ahead. These 2 were really Madman and White-Eyed Wolf. Swish. About a few breaths later. A space-time passage appeared behind the 2 of them. The 2 of them turned their heads and saw Qin Feiyang and the other 3 walking out of the space-time passage. Damn wolf cub. Long Qin immediately stared at the white-eyed wolf unkindly. Stop fooling around. The white-eyed wolf hurriedly reached out to stop him and said in a deep voice, The target is in front, don't let them find out. Long Qin was stunned and looked up at the village in front of him. Qin Feiyang, Li Feng, and Mu Qing also looked up. When they saw the full appearance of the village, they could not help but be stunned. There were a total of 10 households in the village, formed by small inconspicuous wooden buildings, looking more backward than ordinary small villages. This was too ordinary. I'll let you go first, you bastard. Long Qin stared at the white-eyed wolf and scanned the village, frowning. This place looks very ordinary on the surface, but in fact, it is extraordinary everywhere. You have good observation skills. The white-eyed wolf laughed. Chapter 4088. Although the village was ordinary, there was not a single beast around the village. There were only some birds, butterflies, bees, rabbits, and other small animals. Above the village, one could faintly sense the aura of the power of laws. There was even the aura of a time array. Moreover, the vegetation in this mountain range was exuding an abnormally exuberant vitality. It was as if there was a spring of life here. Qin Feiyang turned to look at Long Qin and asked, Use your battle soul to take a look. Okay. Long Qin nodded, her eyes emitting wisps of divine light. When she activated her battle soul and looked at the village again, a trace of shock appeared on her face. The time array that had merged with the earth was revealed. What was even more terrifying was the sky above the village was filled with an invisible force. This was formed by the power of the strongest laws. According to her analysis, these power of laws had all reached the level of ultimate meaning. Moreover, deep underground in the village, she also saw many spirit veins and crystal veins. These spirit veins and crystal veins were all top grade. Just imagine. If it was an ordinary village, how could there be such things? We have already come to observe earlier. There are a total of 15 old people here. The madman whispered. 15 old people? Qin Feiyang was taken aback. That's right. The people living here are either old men or old women. Other than Ji Shaoyi, there isn't even a young man. The madman said. There isn't even a young man. Qin Feiyang's eyes flickered and said with a smile, it seems that this should be the place where the 15 old people live in seclusion. The white-eyed wolf suddenly asked, since Ji Shaoyi is here, it means that these old people are related to the purple-gold divine dragon clan. Do you feel the intimacy of blood being thicker than water here? I really don't. Qin Feiyang shook his head. Then this is strange. The white-eyed wolf frowned. Qin Feiyang looked at the madman and the white-eyed wolf suspiciously and asked, you didn't hear the origin of these people? No. We went to ask the people of the other villages nearby. But we heard that these 15 old people usually never leave the village and never communicate with the people of other villages, so we are not very familiar with them. The madman shook his head. So mysterious? Li Feng's eyes were filled with curiosity. Not only is it mysterious, but it must be terrifying. Otherwise, the human race's supreme would not have advised us not to come here. Qin Feiyang said with a smile. Then, should we go or not? The white-eyed wolf asked. Of course. And I'm going to do it openly. Because no matter how close we are, we will not be able to go. Qin Feiyang smiled faintly. With a single step, he appeared 1,000 miles away. Li, and madman, Li, at the same time. At this moment, all the elders in the village raised their heads and looked at Qin Feiyang and the others. They came really fast. An old man with white hair chuckled. This is the ability of the all-seeing eye. No matter where Ji Shaoyi is hiding, they will be able to track him immediately. An old woman laughed hoarsely, then looked away and continued to wash clothes by the river. The other old people also continued to drink tea, chat, play chess, or fish. It was a peaceful and harmonious scene. Swish. Soon. Qin Feiyang and the others came to the sky above the village and landed on the other side of the river in front of the village. The river was 5 or 6 meters wide. On the opposite bank of the river, an old man was sitting on a small stool, fishing quietly. Not far away, an old lady washing clothes also kept her head down, as if she didn't see Qin Feiyang and the others. Everyone was busy with their own things. What do you mean? Do you think we are heir? The white-eyed wolf frowned. Don't worry. Qin Feiyang waved his hand and stood quietly by the river, watching all of this. At the top of the back mountain. In the tea garden. Master Ji Jiao was pruning the tea trees as usual. Next to him was a young man in purple. This man was about 25 or 26 years old. He was tall and straight and had an extraordinary appearance. But at this moment, there was a trace of nervousness on his well-defined face, and he glanced at the other side of the river in front of the village from time to time. Are you scared? Master Ji Jiao asked with a smile without looking back. Ji Shaoyi was stunned and immediately scratched his head awkwardly. You don't have to feel embarrassed. If I were you, I would be scared too. After all, they are all people who can kill you. But you don't have to worry about us at all. Master Ji Jiao smiled faintly, full of confidence in his words. Hearing this, Ji Shaoyi's nervous heart finally calmed down. Time passed by little by little. In the sky above the village, smoke also rose. The aroma of food came to the nose. People who don't know and see all this will really think that this is an ordinary small village. The white-eyed wolf muttered. Isn't this the life we have always been looking forward to? Like the clouds and wild cranes, carefree. Qin Feiyang smiled faintly. Don't talk nonsense. This is what you aspire to, not what we aspire to. The white-eyed wolf pursed his lips. Isn't it boring to live like this? Qin Feiyang shook his head and laughed. In a person's life, there were nothing more than two choices. One was to live a vigorous life, and the other was to live a plain life. Many people would choose the former. They thought that if they didn't live a vigorous life, wouldn't they have come to the human world in vain? However, Qin Feiyang preferred the latter. Plain life was a blessing. Of course. Everyone had a different understanding of life and life. Qin Feiyang's idea didn't represent everyone's idea. Splash! The old man on the other side suddenly became spirited. He grabbed a fishing rod and pulled hard. A big fish about half a meter long immediately floated out of the water, setting off waves. As expected, there are distinguished guests. I've never caught such a big fish here before. The old man said with a smile. He carried the fish ashore and shouted, "Old woman, hurry up and clean it up. Let these guests have a taste." An old woman came out of the village. Seeing the big fish she caught, she also beamed with joy. The old man finally looked at Qin Feiyang and the others on the opposite side and said with an apologetic smile, "Gentlemen, I'm sorry for the neglect. Senior, you don't have to be so polite. On the other hand, we juniors have taken the liberty to come and disturb the quiet cultivation of the various seniors." Qin Feiyang also cupped his hands and smiled apologetically. Seeing Qin Feiyang's attitude, whether it was the old man standing on the opposite side of the river or the other old men sitting in the village drinking tea and playing chess, they all admired him. He was neither arrogant nor impetuous. He was humble and polite. This was a very good first impression. Don't talk about meditation. We are just a group of ordinary old men. The old man on the other side of the river smiled hoarsely and said, "If you don't mind, please come to the village and have a taste of the fish. Deference is no substitute for deference." Qin Feiyang cupped his hands and smiled. Then he led Mu Qing and the others across the river and landed beside the old man. "Please." The old man chuckled, showing his hospitality. "Sorry to disturb you." Qin Feiyang smiled and followed the old man to the village. He glanced around and said with a smile, "Seniors, you really know how to enjoy life. I can't help it. I'm old. If I don't hide, I will definitely be despised by you young people." The old man shook his head and smiled. "Don't say that. Isn't there an old proverb? An old man in the family is like a treasure." Qin Feiyang smiled slightly. "Young man, you really know how to talk." The old man laughed heartily. Qin Feiyang smiled and asked, "I have yet to ask for Senior's name. I wonder if you can tell me?" "Just call me Ji Laoer," the old man said casually. During the conversation, under the old man's lead, they entered the village. The other old men in the village also showed kind smiles to them. "Ji Laoer, you really need to thank these young friends. Look at you. After being here for so many years, the biggest fish you have caught was only as long as a finger. It's not enough to fill the gaps between our teeth." An old man looked at Ji Laoer and teased him. "That's right. Otherwise, how can you say that they are honored guests?" Ji Laoer chuckled. He turned his head to look at Qin Feiyang and the others, and said, "Let me introduce you all. This is my big brother. You can call him Boss Ji. The others are also our brothers. Ji Laosan, Ji Laosan, there is also an old man called Ji Laosan. He is in the tea garden at the back of the mountain. He will come back when dinner is ready. As for those old women, they are the wives of Ji Laosan, Ji Laosan, Ji Laosan, and Ji Laosan. They are cooking now. I will introduce them to you one by one at the dinner table." Ji Laoer introduced them one by one. Qin Feiyang nodded and bowed. "Greetings, elders. No need to be so polite." Boss Ji waved his hand and smiled. He looked at Qin Feiyang and said, may I know your name, little brother? I am Qin Feiyang. These are my companions. Qin Feiyang didn't hide anything. Although these people didn't seem to know them, it wasn't hard to tell from Ji Shaoi that they knew their identities. Asking them now was just a formality. Ji Laoer looked at Qin Feiyang in surprise and said, "So you are the famous Qin Feiyang. Sorry for the disrespect. Senior, you are too polite." Qin Feiyang waved his hand. Boss Ji suddenly asked, "Little brother, do you know how to play chess?" "Just a little." Qin Feiyang smiled humbly. "Then how about we play a game?" Boss Ji looked at Qin Feiyang with great interest. "As long as you don't mind, I am happy to play." Qin Feiyang smiled. "It is rare for a young man to be willing to play chess with an old man like me. I am more than happy. Why would I mind? Come, come, come. Let's play a game before the dinner is ready." Boss Ji couldn't wait to clean up the messy chess pieces on the board. Qin Feiyang smiled and sat opposite Boss Ji. He helped to clean up. "This doesn't seem right." Seeing this, White-Eyed Wolf's expression was very strange. "Indeed, it doesn't seem right. It is very different from what I imagined." Li Feng nodded. He thought that there would be a fierce battle here, but he didn't expect them to be treated like guests. He didn't even feel any hostility. These old men and women couldn't be planning something in secret, right? Chapter 4089. White-Eyed Wolf and the others couldn't help but be surprised. They couldn't be careless in a place that even the supreme master of the human clan was afraid of. However, Qin Feiyang had been very calm. As the black and white pieces fell, the game between him and Boss Ji officially began. Qin Feiyang's chess skills had always been good. He started learning in the capital when he was a child and could be considered a little genius in chess. But later, after being expelled from the capital, he rarely touched the chessboard and rarely played chess with others. Because he didn't have the leisure time. Survival was a problem. Until a few years ago, when he entered the Shen village and met Shen Mulan. Although Shen Mulan's strength was not strong, in terms of chess attainment, he could be said to be the most powerful person he had ever met in his life. In those years when he played chess with Shen Mulan, he basically lost. Similarly, also because he often played chess with Shen Mulan, his chess skills were much better than before. Not long after the game started, Qin Feiyang saw the depth of Boss Ji's chess skills through the way he played chess. In terms of strength, 100,000 Shen Mulans were no match for Boss Ji. But in terms of chess skills, even 10 Boss Jis were no match for Shen Mulan. And Qin Feiyang, although at first he was defeated by Shen Mulan, later, as his chess skills improved, he often won a game. Such chess skills naturally surpassed Boss Ji's. About 100 breaths. Qin Feiyang seized the initiative and pressed on step by step, making Boss Ji feel a great pressure. Even beads of sweat could be seen on his forehead. For Boss Ji, he rarely played chess with outsiders and usually played with Ji Laoer and his brothers. Compared with Ji Laoer and his brothers, his chess skills had always been superior. And because of this, he was very confident in his chess skills. In the beginning, Qin Feiyang agreed to play chess with him, and he also thought that he would win. And in his opinion, young people nowadays were too utilitarian. How could they be proficient in chess? Even if they knew how to play chess, they only knew a little. But he never expected that Qin Feiyang's chess skills were so extraordinary that in just 100 breaths, he was defeated. Beside him, Ji Laoer and the others gathered behind Boss Ji and stared at the chessboard with a solemn expression. This young man's chess skills could simply crush them. Not only was he so talented in cultivation, but he was also so good at chess. For rookies like them, Qin Feiyang's chess skills were godlike. As for the mad scientist and the others, they had mocking expressions on their faces. If he hadn't gone to the Shen family village, Qin Feiyang's chess skills would probably be similar to Boss Ji's. But now, things were different now. Playing chess with him was simply asking for a beating. Of course. In terms of chess, Frenzy and the others were even worse. He probably wasn't even a tenth of Boss Ji. Because just like Boss Ji's view of young people nowadays, they were not interested in playing chess at all. If he had the time, he might as well have a good sleep. Another 100 breaths passed. There was a deathly silence. Boss Ji looked at Qin Feiyang, who was holding a chess piece, with a serious expression. Because this move was related to the life and death of the entire chess game. As long as the chess piece in Qin Feiyang's hand landed in a crucial position, Boss Ji's side would immediately lose. Therefore, Boss Ji was very nervous. As an elder, losing to a junior was a bit shameful for him. Looking at Qin Feiyang again. He glanced at the chessboard with a confident smile on his face. As long as he wanted to, he could immediately win. However, after glancing at Boss Ji on the opposite side, the chess piece in his hand landed in another position. Not only did this position not end the game, but it also released the suppression on Boss Ji, allowing Boss Ji's chess piece to come back to life. Even because of this move, Qin Feiyang's chess game, which was originally in his grasp, directly fell into a disadvantageous position. What do you mean? The mad scientist and the others looked at Qin Feiyang in shock. He could obviously kill Boss Ji in one move, but why did he let him go? Qin Feiyang didn't understand. Impossible. Such an obvious chess game, even rookies like them knew where the weak point was. How could Qin Feiyang not know? At the same time, on the opposite side, Boss Ji, Ji Lauer and the others were also stunned. What was this kid doing? A good move, how could it end up like this? Boss Ji came back to his senses and took a deep breath. Since the opportunity was sent to him, then don't blame him for not being polite. He picked up the chess pieces one by one and changed from defense to offense. After a while, because of the previous concession, Qin Feiyang lost this chess game. Huh, Boss Ji laughed from ear to ear. Old Qin, what are you doing? The mad scientist looked at Qin Feiyang in confusion. He was obviously going to win, but he had to play and lose. Wasn't this stupid? Qin Feiyang smiled faintly and didn't explain. He looked at Boss Ji and smiled, senior's chess skills, this junior admires. This sentence, Boss Ji should be happy to hear. But at this moment, he couldn't be happy. He felt that there seemed to be a hidden sarcasm in these words. Actually, Qin Feiyang didn't mock him, it was just a casual polite sentence. He looked at Boss Ji and asked with a smile, why don't we play another game? Again? Boss Ji was stunned. Qin Feiyang smiled, this junior is also a person who doesn't admit defeat. This, Boss Ji hesitated. The reason for that was because Qin Feiyang had clearly gone easy on him earlier. If he played again, he was afraid that he would lose miserably. There was a good saying, stop when you're ahead, otherwise, you're asking for humiliation. Senior, don't tell me you don't have the courage. Qin Feiyang chuckled as he packed up the chess pieces. At this moment, his words were obviously filled with provocation. Even the tone of his words had become different from before, with an unconcealable sharpness. What did you say? No courage? What a joke, come on then. Boss Ji snorted coldly. Boss, forget it. Seeing this, Ji Lauer and the others hurriedly hinted to Boss Ji. But Boss Ji was very unhappy and turned a deaf ear to it. He quickly kept the chess pieces on the chessboard and said, this time, this old man will let you go first. How can an elder let a junior go first? Senior, please go first. Qin Feiyang smiled slightly. All right. Boss Ji nodded and the chess piece in his hand fell. Qin Feiyang smiled faintly and the chess piece in his hand also fell. Following the placement of the chess piece, an austere aura began to pervade the chessboard. Boss Ji's heart trembled. He felt that the current Qin Feiyang and the previous Qin Feiyang were like two different people. Not to mention anything else, just this murderous aura made him nervous. Immediately after, he picked up a chess piece and after a very serious consideration, he put it down. However, Qin Feiyang's every move was very casual, without any consideration. It was as if the entire game had been deduced in his mind. Moreover, with every chess piece that was placed, the murderous aura became stronger. So much so that after 100 breaths, the entire village was shrouded in a murderous aura. Qin Feiyang's every move at this time was also full of murderous aura. Boss Ji's face was extremely serious. Could this be Qin Feiyang's true way of chess? Boom! As Qin Feiyang's last chess piece fell, a gust of wind suddenly appeared and the entire chessboard was shattered on the spot. The terrifying murderous aura also rushed towards Boss Ji. Boss Ji instinctively retreated and his face turned pale. At this moment, he felt as if there were countless sharp blades flying towards him, sharp and piercing. Boss Ji Lauer and the others hurried forward and looked at Boss Ji with concern. Boss Ji's heart couldn't calm down for a long time. It was just a game of chess, but it made him feel as if he had gone through a bloody battle. Senior, thank you for letting me win. Qin Feiyang stood up and cupped his hands with a smile. The murderous aura that permeated the village also dissipated. Boss Ji looked at Qin Feiyang, took a deep breath, and asked, "You lost to me on purpose in the first game?" To this, Qin Feiyang smiled but didn't say anything. In the first game, you lost to me on purpose. In the second game, you started to kill and crush me. This is the so-called peaceful means before resorting to force. Boss Ji said. Qin Feiyang still smiled and didn't say anything. Peaceful means before resorting to force. Ji Lauer and the others heard this and looked at Qin Feiyang. Was this a hint for them to take the initiative to hand over Ji Shaoi? So that's how it is. Frenzy and the others suddenly understood. It turned out that Qin Feiyang did this for another reason. What a wonderful game. Suddenly, a hoarse laugh sounded. Old Nine? Boss Ji and the others were taken aback and hurriedly looked up. They saw an old man with a purple-clothed youth walking over from the back mountain. Qin Feiyang and the others couldn't help but look up. The old man's aura was ethereal, and he had the demeanor of an immortal. The youth was tall and straight, and his bearing was extraordinary. As expected, this old man was Ji Jiao on the top of the mountain. The purple-clothed youth, needless to say, was Ji Shaoi. It was the first time they saw Ji Shaoi himself, and he looked quite temperamental. An old man and a young man landed in the village. Although Ji Jiao and the others were there, Ji Shaoi couldn't help but feel terrified when facing Qin Feiyang and the others. Little friend, why don't we play a game? Ji Jiao walked to the table, and with a wave of his hand, the power of law spread out, and a virtual chessboard gradually emerged. He then looked at Qin Feiyang and smiled. Old Qin, he is provoking you. Frenzy transmitted his voice. This person is so confident, his chess skills should be quite good. Long Qin frowned. If it was just a normal game, it wouldn't matter. But now, it was obviously an invisible contest. Boss Ji might even be injured when facing Qin Feiyang's attack. Qin Feiyang's eyes flickered, and he cupped his hands with a smile. Yes, Master Jiao, please. Straightforward. Ji Jiao smiled hoarsely, raised his hand and pointed in the air, and a chess piece appeared on the chessboard. With the appearance of the chess piece, the chessboard suddenly turned into an azure battlefield, as if there was a terrifying demon king staring at Qin Feiyang. This strange phenomenon was not only noticed by Qin Feiyang, but also Frenzy and the others, Boss Ji, and Ji Shaoyi, who were watching by the side, and they instinctively took a few steps back. Their faces were extremely solemn. Chapter 40-90. At the scene. Only Qin Feiyang looked as indifferent as ever. "Are you here to show me who's boss?" He smiled faintly. With a wave of his hand, another chess piece appeared on the chessboard out of thin air. The two chess pieces stood opposite each other. It was as if the wills of Qin Feiyang and Ji Jiao were colliding, setting off a shocking wave. Sure enough, heroes come from the young. Ji Jiao chuckled. "You flatter me." Qin Feiyang smiled faintly. Black and white chess pieces kept appearing. The two were facing each other, and their auras were rolling in all directions. "This old man's chess skills are so good?" Madman was surprised. "Old Jiao's chess skills are much better than mine. I'm afraid that even Qin Feiyang is no match for him." Old Jiao looked at Ji Jiao with expectation in his eyes. "That's not necessarily true." Madman sneered. During the conversation, the black and white chess pieces had already met for dozens of times. Qin Feiyang's chess piece was white, and Ji Jiao's chess piece was black. The two were fighting back and forth like thousands of troops and horses. It was hard to tell who was the better one. "Not bad. You're the first person among the younger generation in the Divine Kingdom who can reach this level of chess skills. However, the chess game is ever-changing. You need to take every step carefully. One wrong step and you'll lose the whole game. Your weakness is that you're too aggressive." Ji Jiao glanced at the chessboard and soon found Qin Feiyang's weakness. The black chess piece was placed, and the game suddenly became one-sided. Qin Feiyang smiled without saying a word. Although he was already at a disadvantage in the game, he wasn't nervous at all. White chess pieces kept appearing one after another. At first, Ji Jiao thought that victory was already in his hands, but gradually, he seemed to have found something, and his eyes gradually became solemn. On the other hand, the smile on Qin Feiyang's face became even brighter. Boom! Hundreds of rounds passed. The game was instantly reversed. Qin Feiyang, who was originally at a disadvantage and passively defending, directly seized the initiative and launched an attack in the air. "This is..." Master Ji Jiao's eyes widened. "On the surface, I was indeed very aggressive earlier. However, that was actually a flaw that I deliberately exposed. Furthermore, it was also a trap that I deliberately set up. In other words, earlier, when you thought that victory was within your grasp, you had already unknowingly fallen into my trap. Now, you don't even have the chance to defend yourself." Qin Feiyang smiled faintly. When the white Go stones were placed, the entire Go board instantly turned into a dead end. "A trap," Ji Jiao murmured as he scanned the chessboard. No matter how hard he tried, he couldn't find any hope. They had been planning this from the very beginning, just waiting for this moment. He was indeed a terrifying young man. This move is called leading the wolf into the house. I learned it when I played chess with an elder. Of course, there is also a way to break it. Let's just see if Lord Jiao can find this last bit of hope in this hopeless situation." Qin Feiyang said with a smile. Inviting a wolf into the house, Ji Jiao muttered. Since there was a way to break it, even if there was only a trace of hope, with his attainments in Go, he would definitely be able to find it. Who was the one who said that old Qin was no match for someone? Madman looked at Boss Ji jokingly. Boss Ji coughed dryly, his expression full of embarrassment. Who would have thought that Qin Feiyang's attainments in Go had already reached such a level? He had overestimated old Jiao. I see. It was also at this moment. Ji Jiao revealed a look of realization and said with a smile, the so-called leading the wolf into the house is simply more harmful than beneficial. Because as long as the wolf is strong enough, it can eat the person who set the trap. The black go stones appeared. The entire go board suddenly changed drastically. Ji Jiao thought that he had turned the tables, and a victorious smile almost appeared on his face. However, the next moment, he found that although the go board had changed greatly, his situation had not changed at all. Instead, it was getting more and more disadvantageous for him. It was as if the white go stones on the opposite side had become an inescapable net, imprisoning him inside. I forgot to tell you that the so-called chance of survival is also the gate of hell. Qin Feiyang waved his hand, and a white go stone appeared on the go board. He chuckled and said, "Inescapable net, done." At this moment, the whole go board had completely become a dead end, and there was no chance of survival. Inescapable net, Ji Jiao murmured. Looking at the whole go board, it was as if it was really an inescapable net, cutting off all his hope. Was he going to lose just like that? No. Even if it was an inescapable net, he would definitely be able to find the exit. Ji Jiao slowly closed his eyes. His mind was integrated into the whole go board. Qin Feiyang smiled faintly, closed his eyes, and his mind surged. Don't you want to give this old man time to observe? Ji Jiao raised his eyebrows. Yes, because there is no unbreakable go board in the world. Qin Feiyang nodded. This was an exchange of thoughts. The whole go board turned into a vast world. The chess pieces on the chessboard turned into bright stars. Qin Feiyang and Ji Jiao's minds seemed to be in the sea of stars at this moment, standing opposite each other. What are they doing? Li Feng was surprised. Both of them closed their eyes, and it became quiet in an instant. The two of them communicated with their minds, and the onlookers couldn't hear them at all. They have entered a different state. Longqin's eyes were filled with wisps of divine light, and it was obvious that he had activated his battle soul. He frowned and said, "Their real battle has just begun." Hearing this, Boss Ji and the others looked at Longqin in surprise. How could this little girl know so clearly, as if she could see it? This kind of battle seems to be very good. In the endless sea of stars, Ji Jiao looked at Qin Feiyang opposite him and chuckled. I think so too. But since it's a battle, there should be a bet. Qin Feiyang smiled. You want a bet? Ji Jiao was stunned. Aren't you asking the obvious? Apart from Ji Shaoi's Eye of Destiny, what else can tempt me? Qin Feiyang smiled. As expected, you're here for Ji Shaoi. All right. Let this old man see if you have the ability. Ji Jiao took a step forward, and the stars in the sky shook. Ultimate Intense roared out, and a destructive aura surged toward Qin Feiyang. 6 Supreme Laws. Death Edict, Destruction Edict, Spacetime Edict, Time Edict, Nothingness Edict, and Devour Edict. Each of the Ultimate Intents contained a terrifying will of the heavenly Tao. Very strong indeed. Qin Feiyang chuckled. As soon as he finished speaking, the kingdom of life and death appeared. As the will of the heavenly Tao erupted, the world immediately trembled. This is the ultimate intent of the life and death edict, Ji Jiao murmured. Boom! The ultimate intents of the 6 supreme laws erupted like a volcano, and the power to destroy the world blasted out. No law can compete with the life and death edict. Qin Feiyang waved his hand, and the kingdom of life and death pressed down. Accompanied by an earth-shattering bang, the two were shattered in the starry sky. 1 against 6. This was the power of the ultimate intents of the life and death edict. Strong. Ji Jiao's eyes were solemn. Even for him, this was his first time witnessing the ultimate intents of the life and death edict. This was more than surpassing the supreme laws. It was simply crushing. However, as an existence that even the monarch was in awe of, he had more means. Boom! In just an instant, 8 ultimate profundities appeared above Master Ji Jiu's head, accompanied by terrifying auras. In addition to the 6 ultimate intents that appeared before, the other 2 ultimate intents were the Life Edict. The ultimate intents of the Life Edict turned into a divine lotus, which not only exuded a majestic life energy, but also a great divine power. However, the other ultimate intents was a law that Qin Feiyang had never seen before. It was a world of darkness and light. It was like hell and heaven, with devils on one side and angels on the other. The aura it exuded was not inferior to the ultimate intents of the Spacetime Edict. Looking at this ultimate intents, Qin Feiyang's eyes were full of surprise. You haven't seen it before? That's true. Even if you can fuse the Death and Life Edict, you may not be able to fuse the Light and Darkness Edict. Ji Jiu said. The Light and Darkness Edict? Qin Feiyang was taken aback. That's right. This is the Light and Darkness Edict after the fusion of the Light and Darkness Edict. Although it is not comparable to the Life and Death Edict, after the fusion of the 2 ordinary Light and Darkness Edict, it can evolve into an ultimate law. Ji Jiu waved his hand, and the 8 ultimate intents of the 8 ultimate intents charged toward Qin Feiyang with earth-shattering power. So that's how it is. The Light and Darkness Edict can be fused. Qin Feiyang murmured. He had never heard of this before. And he had never seen it in the Sky Cloud realm. But thinking about it, it made sense. Although the lethality of the Light and Darkness Edict was far less than the Life and Death Edict, it was definitely not easy to fuse 2 edicts. For example, the Death and Life Edict were both comprehended by Qin Feiyang by chance. Boom! The kingdom of life and death reappeared. The power of life and death roared like a raging wave and blasted out. Accompanied by a deafening loud noise, the kingdom of life and death shattered on the spot in the face of the 8 ultimate intents of the 8 ultimate intents. Qin Feiyang, who was standing in front of the chessboard, immediately overflowed with purple gold dragon blood from the corner of his mouth. What? Old Qin is actually injured? Seeing this scene, frenzy exclaimed. White-eyed Wolf, Li Feng, Long Qin, and Mu Qin also had a look of disbelief. With Qin Feiyang's current strength, how could he not be a match for Ji Jiu? What's going on? Boss Ji and the others looked at each other with a trace of surprise in their eyes. However, looking at the purple gold dragon blood at the corner of Qin Feiyang's mouth, their hearts were also incomparably complicated. This was the descendant of the little girl of the divine kingdom in the Sky Cloud realm. The descendants of the purple gold divine dragon clan couldn't be compared at all. In the world of consciousness, the battle was still ongoing. After the 8 ultimate intents shattered the kingdom of life and death, they aggressively rushed toward Qin Feiyang. It seems that the greatest limit of the ultimate intents of the Life and Death Edict is to fight 1 against 6. Qin Feiyang smiled faintly. Compared to the nervous frenzy and the others, he was as if nothing had happened. 1 against 6, still not satisfied? Ji Jiu frowned. Of course I'm satisfied. However, if that's all you've got, then you should admit defeat as soon as possible. Qin Feiyang smiled. Is that so? Then let this old man see your true strength. Ji Jiu's face revealed a look of anticipation. Chapter 4091. As you wish. Qin Feiyang took a step forward. Strands of power of law surged out like a tide. Time law, cause and effect law, life law, death law, and destruction law. Finally, it was the law of life and death. What? Ji Jiu's face changed on the spot. In addition to the law of life and death, he had mastered so many ultimate laws? When he fought with the king before, didn't this kid master the ultimate laws of life and death, death law, life law, and cause and effect law? When did he master the ultimate profundities of the laws of destruction and the laws of time? What a terrifying young man. How long had it been? His strength had skyrocketed again. Boom! The ultimate laws of the two collided again. The kingdom of life and death was 1 against 6. Death law, life law, time law, cause and effect law, and destruction law. 5 ultimate laws. Such destructive power was comparable to 11 ultimate laws. As for Jijiu, he only had 8 ultimate profundities. How could he block all of Qin Feiyang's ultimate profundities? With a loud rumble, a scene of destruction was displayed. Jijiu's 8 ultimate laws could completely contend with the power. Puff! Outside. Jijiu, who was standing in front of the stone table, also spat out a mouthful of blood on the spot. What? Old Jiu is also injured? Boss Ji and the others were shocked, and their faces were full of worry. However, Madman and the others looked at the blood Jijiu spat out, and their eyes were full of shock. It was purple gold dragon blood. In other words, Jijiu was a purple gold divine dragon. Since he was a purple gold divine dragon, why didn't Qin Feiyang feel the kinship of blood thicker than water? They immediately looked at Boss Ji and the others. These people claimed to be brothers. In that case, they were all purple gold divine dragons? We must have entered the dragon's nest. Long Qin murmured. Aren't you also a divine dragon? White-eyed Wolf laughed secretly. How can I be the same as them? Long Qin glared at the white-eyed wolf and said in a deep voice, don't forget an important point. These people are the purple gold divine dragons. Even the supreme beings of the human race have to respect them. Moreover, even the monarch trusts them so much. They might even have 3,000 incarnations. Hearing this, the mad scientist, white-eyed wolf, Li Feng, and Mu Qing's eyes trembled. That was probably a possibility. If it was a one-on-one battle, Qin Feiyang could rely on the law of life and death to put up a fight. But if they ganged up on Qin Feiyang, and if all the old people in this village really had 3,000 incarnations, then even Qin Feiyang, who had grasped the laws of life and death, wouldn't be a match for this group of people. This was because if 15 old men activated 3,000 clones together, that would be a total of 45,000 clones. As for Qin Feiyang's 3,000 incarnations, how could they possibly defend against 45,000 incarnations? Not to mention a battle, just thinking about it made their scalps go numb. In the world of consciousness, the battle was getting more and more intense. The heaven and earth formed by the chessboard began to collapse. If you were born in my purple gold divine dragon clan, you would definitely become the pride of our entire clan. Jijiu's face was full of admiration, but then he shook his head and said, but if you want to defeat us and take away Ji Shaoi, you will never be able to do so. As his voice fell, 3,000 identical people appeared behind him. 3,000 incarnations. Qin Feiyang's pupils contracted. The appearance of 3,000 incarnations was enough to prove that Jijiu was a purple gold divine dragon. Just like the mad scientist and the others, since the other party was a purple gold divine dragon, why couldn't he feel it? Because we have deliberately sealed the aura of the purple gold dragon blood. Jijiu seemed to see the doubts in Qin Feiyang's heart and said in a hoarse voice. Why do you want to do this? Qin Feiyang frowned. First, because we want to keep a low profile. I believe you have also noticed that there are many villages near this mountain range. We can't let them know our true identity. Second, we know you will come, so we want to see your character. Jijiu said lightly. You know I will come? Qin Feiyang was stunned. This was a bit unexpected. Although we old antiques don't care about worldly affairs and live in seclusion all year round, it's not difficult for us to predict your arrival. You kidnapped Jiang Yunshuang and the others and took away their battle souls. Besides, since you have already found Jiang Yunshuang and the others' battle souls, you must have also found Ji Shaoi's battle souls. So you must have asked Mu Qing to use the all-seeing eye to find Ji Shaoi's whereabouts. This is also why we asked the monarch to leave Ji Shaoi here. On one hand, it was to protect him, and on the other hand, it was to lure you here. Ji Jiao explained. I see. It seems that the truly terrifying person in the divine kingdom isn't the monarch, the divine king, the supremes of the human race, or the supremes of the other races, but the people in your village. Qin Feiyang smiled. No. We are not terrifying. The truly terrifying one is the Central Dynasty. The Central Dynasty is your greatest enemy. Ji Jiao's eyes flashed. You know about the Central Dynasty? Qin Feiyang was surprised. I know a little. Ji Jiao nodded. Tell me. Qin Feiyang's eyes were filled with anticipation. He had always been puzzled by the Central Dynasty. So mysterious, what kind of place was it? Moreover, he had a premonition that the Central Dynasty would be his greatest obstacle in killing the sovereigns. There are some things that I have to uncover on my own. Besides, this old man doesn't know much. But there is one thing that this old man can tell you. If you can't even defeat us old guys, then you don't have the strength to shake the Central Dynasty at all. Ji Jiao smiled faintly. Then I'll defeat you first. Qin Feiyang's eyes flashed coldly, and his 3,000 clones appeared. Boom! Ultimate intents appeared one after another, destroying heaven and earth. Looking at this scene, Ji Jiao smiled wryly. In terms of individual strength, this old man is truly inferior to you. No, in the entire Purple Gold Divine Dragon clan, human race, and divine race, no one is your match. In that case, do I have the qualifications to fight against the Central Dynasty? Qin Feiyang asked. No. Unless you can defeat all the old guys in the village. Ji Jiao said. Outside. Boss Ji and the others suddenly closed their eyes. The moment they closed their eyes, a group of people appeared beside Master Ji Jiao in the world of their minds. What's going on? Madman was surprised. Not good. They're all going to help Ji Jiao. Longqin's expression changed. What? Madman and the others turned pale. When they came back to their senses, White-Eyed Wolf said in a deep voice, Let's go help. No. To enter Qin Feiyang's mental world, we first need to be summoned by Qin Feiyang and get his permission before we can enter. But now, he's not summoning us. This means that he doesn't want us to take the risk. Longqin shook his head. Risk? Li Feng frowned. That's right. There's also danger in a battle of wills. If Qin Feiyang is killed by the other party in the world of consciousness, then his consciousness will disappear. I don't need to tell you the consequences of losing consciousness. You should be clear about it. Longqin's eyes were gloomy. What kind of joke is this? 10 old antiques going to deal with a junior? Don't you have any shame? Old Qin, let us go in and help. Madman roared. Losing one's consciousness was equivalent to losing one's life. At the same time, seeing the mental world of Boss Ji and the others, Qin Feiyang frowned. Old Jiao, what do you mean by this? You want us old guys to join forces to bully a junior? If this spreads out, how are we going to face others in the future? Boss Ji looked at old Jiao unhappily. Big brother, don't make it sound so easy, okay? Take a look for yourself. The ultimate law of life and death, plus the ultimate law of 5 ultimate laws. Who can be his opponent? Old Jiao smiled bitterly. If he could defeat this kid, he wouldn't have asked them to help. Boss G looked at Qin Feiyang opposite him. 3,000 incarnations had already activated their ultimate law. Among them, the law of life and death was the most dazzling. Because their aura was too terrifying, it was hard not to see it. Is the law of life and death really that strong? A black-haired old man walked out. He was the 10th brother of the 10 brothers, known as Old Jiu. Boom! As he took a step forward, 3,000 incarnations were activated. One ultimate law after another appeared, and the divine aura of heavenly Tao shrouded all directions. He also has 3,000 incarnations. Qin Feiyang was shocked. Could it be that these 10 brothers really have 3,000 incarnations? Moreover, in addition to the 3,000 incarnations, this old Jiu also mastered the ultimate law of 8 ultimate laws. Among them was the law of light and darkness. What kind of terrifying old monsters were they? Let this old man have a taste of it. Old Jiu's eyes turned cold. 24,000 ultimate laws instantly turned into a torrent that swept across the starry sky and charged toward Qin Feiyang. Boss G and the others also held their breaths as they stared at this scene. Qin Feiyang suppressed the shock in his heart and turned to look at the 3,000 incarnations with a smile. We can't disappoint these old seniors. The 3,000 incarnations laughed. Boom! The ultimate ultimates floating in the air immediately unleashed a world-destroying godly might as they charged forward. In terms of numbers, Old Jiu's ultimate laws were far more than Qin Feiyang's. 8 ultimate profound meanings, 24,000 of them. Qin Feiyang's 6 ultimate laws, a total of 18,000. However, the powerful 3,000 law of life and death could fight 1 against 6. In other words, just the 3,000 kingdoms of life and death could withstand 18,000 ultimate profundities of ultimate laws. In the blink of an eye. Rumble. Accompanied by a series of earth-shaking explosions, the torrents formed by the 2 ultimate laws finally met. A destructive aura roared in all directions. Cracks immediately appeared on the chessboard's world. Then, it began to crumble and fall. Outside. The chessboard suspended between Qin Feiyang and Ji Jiu was also rapidly cracking, and the black and white chess pieces on it were shattered one by one. Damn it! Bullying with numbers, what a bunch of old bastards. Looking at this scene, the frenzied one, the white-eyed wolf, and Li Feng were burning with anxiety. If the other party didn't have 3,000 incarnations, that would be fine. But if the 10 brothers all had 3,000 incarnations, then Qin Feiyang would definitely die. Chapter 4092. More importantly, they wanted to help, but Qin Feiyang didn't summon them. They could only watch. Boom! The world of consciousness was about to be destroyed. Ji Laoshi spat out a mouthful of blood and flew out like a meteorite. The 3,000 clones he had activated were all shattered. So powerful. Ji Laoshi, Boss Ji, and the others were all shocked by the power of the kingdom of life and death. As expected. If it was a one-on-one fight, none of them would be a match for Qin Feiyang. They had to work together to suppress him. The 10 of them looked at each other. In the next moment, in the void behind them, 3,000 identical people appeared at the same time. Seeing this scene, Qin Feiyang was greatly alarmed. They all had 3,000 clones. How terrifying. Was this the true power of the purple-gold divine dragon race? Any one of the 10 old men was more powerful than the monarch and heavenly lord Ji. Even if all the people around him were here, they would not be a match for these 10 super experts if they joined forces, let alone him. Do we still need to fight? Ji Jiu looked at Qin Feiyang and asked. Qin Feiyang smiled bitterly. No wonder the king left Ji Shaoi here. What other place could be safer than here? However, he had to get Ji Shaoi's battle soul. The importance of the Eye of Destiny was obvious. Qin Feiyang took a deep breath and looked at the 10 elders. Seniors, please tell me how to give the Eye of Destiny to me. Impossible. Ji Jiao shook his head. Qin Feiyang clenched his fists and said angrily, Seniors, you're all smart people. An unevolved Eye of Destiny is useless. I don't need to tell you how powerful the Eye of Destiny is. Can you bear to see such a powerful battle soul go to waste? We know how powerful the Eye of Destiny is. If you don't want to waste it, you can give your Eye of Destiny to Ji Shaoi. Ji Shaoi is quite talented. He'll be able to use the Eye of Destiny after he fuses with it. Ji Jiao said. Qin Feiyang frowned and asked, Then may I ask, what is Ji Shaoi's character like? Not bad. Master Ji Jiao said after a moment of silence. Qin Feiyang frowned and said, Can I understand the word not bad as ordinary? Yes. Ji Jiao nodded. All right then. Now, let me tell you about Dong Zhengyang's character. Qin Feiyang said. Dong Zhengyang? The 10 of them were suspicious. Dong Zhengyang is the other owner of the Eye of Destiny. In this life, I, Qin Feiyang, rarely admire others, but Dong Zhengyang is one of them. Qin Feiyang recounted everything that Dong Zhengyang had done over the years in detail, including Mu Qing's scheme against Dong Zhengyang. A moment later, after Qin Feiyang finished his narration, the 10 of them fell silent. Compared to Dong Zhengyang's character, Ji Shaoi was really not worth mentioning. However, who didn't want the people around them to have the strongest battle soul? If Ji Shaoi's Eye of Destiny could evolve, the strength of the Purple Gold Divine Dragon clan would definitely increase by another level. Dong Zhengyang is willing to sacrifice all his interests for the sake of the big picture. Furthermore, he is a man who prioritizes the common people and is willing to repay evil with good. Perhaps Ji Shaoi's talent is stronger than Dong Zhengyang's, but we have to see their character to determine the owner of the strongest battle soul. I can guarantee with my head that Dong Zhengyang is not a selfish person. But what about Ji Shaoi? Seniors, can you guarantee that he is not selfish? The Eye of Destiny has a heaven-defying power. If it falls into the hands of a selfish person, can you imagine what kind of disaster it will bring? Qin Feiyang was trying his best to persuade them. No matter what, they had to obtain the Eye of Destiny. They couldn't let it fall into the hands of a selfish person. The 10 of them pondered for a while before old Ji nodded and said, What you said makes sense. However, even if Ji Shaoi is selfish, we can still restrain him. Restrain him? You can restrain him now because he hasn't grown up yet. But what about the future? When he becomes as strong as you in the future, will you still be able to restrain him? Qin Feiyang laughed coldly. The 10 of them frowned. Sigh. Qin Feiyang sighed deeply and shook his head in disappointment. I thought that you were all reasonable people. However, it seems like you're just so. I might have to change my view of the Purple Gold Divine Dragon clan. Rascal, don't be so presumptuous. If we want to kill you now, no one can save you. Old Ji raised his brows. Yes. I admit that. However, even if you can kill me, I will make you pay a heavy price. We can try if you don't believe us. Qin Feiyang's eyes glinted coldly. Old Ji's gaze turned cold. Old Ji, don't be like this. No matter what, he's still a descendant of the Purple Gold Divine Dragon clan. There's no need to make things so difficult. Old Ji stopped Old Ji and looked at Qin Feiyang with a smile. How about this? We won't participate in this matter. Let Dong Zhengyang and Ji Shaoi fight for it themselves. Qin Feiyang was stunned. He looked at Old Ji and said, I'm all ears. As you said, character is the most important thing. Let's test their character. In the end, the eye of destiny will belong to whoever has the better character. Old Ji said. I see. Qin Feiyang nodded and smiled. This method is fair and just. I think it'll work. Then the battle will end here? The meal is almost ready. Let's discuss it while eating. What do you think? Old Ji asked. As you wish. Qin Feiyang smiled faintly. It seemed that these old people weren't that unreasonable. Outside. As the last chess piece was crushed, the motionless Qin Feiyang finally opened his eyes. Old Qin. Little Qin Z. Qin Dage. Crazy Z and the others immediately surrounded him. Their faces were full of concern. Don't worry. The problem has been solved. Qin Feiyang waved his hand and smiled. How can we not be worried in such a situation? You're really, the other party already called for help, but you didn't call for us. Crazy Z glared at Qin Feiyang unhappily. Qin Feiyang smiled awkwardly. On the other side. Old Ji and the others opened their eyes one after another. Crazy Z looked up at the 10 of them and snorted. Fortunately, Old Qin is fine. Otherwise, I'll tear down your lousy village. Huh, young people are too arrogant. Old Ji laughed. Crazy Z rolled his eyes. Old Ji turned his head to look at the wooden building and shouted, Old woman, are you done? We're going to starve to death. Hurry up. Okay, you guys tidy up. The old woman's voice came from inside. Come, help me tidy up. Old Ji called out. Old Ji looked at Qin Feiyang and asked, how do you break this inescapable net? He was still very concerned about this problem. He thought that he was quite accomplished in chess, but he didn't expect to lose to a junior. The inescapable net seems to be unsolvable, but it's actually very easy to break it. Qin Feiyang smiled faintly. How do I break it? Old Ji looked at Qin Feiyang expectantly. You can imagine the inescapable net as a fishing net. How do you break a fishing net? Qin Feiyang asked with a smile. Fishing net. Old Ji was stunned and lowered his head to ponder. Isn't it easy to break a fishing net? Just cut a network cable, and a hole will appear in the fishing net. Crazy Z said faintly. That's right. Old Ji was enlightened. He looked up at Qin Feiyang and asked, from what you said, you can break the inescapable net by removing a chess piece? That's right. Qin Feiyang nodded. Old Ji smiled bitterly inside. I really didn't expect that the method to break it would be so simple. Sometimes, it's like this. It seems very complicated, but it's actually very simple. Qin Feiyang smiled faintly. I've learned a lot. This old man also willingly lost this game of chess. However, how can a young man like you have such superb chess skills? Old Ji was suspicious. It's all thanks to an old man. Back in the sky cloud realm, when I comprehended the ultimate meaning of the law of life and death, I entered an inconspicuous small village. There was an old man in the village who was about to die. By chance, I helped him extend his life. Although his strength was not as good as yours, Old Ji, his chess skills were quite good. In those decades, I played chess with him every day and learned a lot from him. It was like inviting a wolf into the house. The inescapable net was also his true inheritance. Qin Feiyang smiled slightly. So that's how it is. Old Ji smiled and exclaimed, I really didn't expect that there would be someone with such superb chess skills in the sky cloud realm. I really want to see it. As long as the sky cloud realm and the divine kingdom reconcile, there will definitely be a chance. Qin Feiyang smiled. Okay. Hurry up and eat. While they were talking, the dishes had already been served. There were more than a dozen dishes on the big table. But apart from a large bowl of fresh fish soup, the rest were the most common wild vegetables in the mountains. However, this was the life of returning to simplicity. Grannies, you've worked hard. Qin Feiyang looked at the 5 old ladies. Little guy, you're overstepping your seniority by calling us grannies. Even you has to call us great-grannies. Since you're Yu's descendant, I'm afraid you'll have to call us great-grannies. One of the old ladies smiled kindly. You? Qin Feiyang was stunned. You still don't know who you is? The group of old people looked at Qin Feiyang in surprise. Qin Feiyang shook his head. You is your ancestor, the little princess of our divine kingdom. Her full name is Ji Tianyue. Old Ji smiled. So it's the ancestor. Qin Feiyang suddenly understood. You're an interesting descendant. You don't even know the name of your ancestor. Old Ji looked at Qin Feiyang mockingly. Qin Feiyang smiled awkwardly. He didn't care about these questions before. Chapter 4093. Don't just talk, eat your chopsticks. Another old lady got up, took a spoon, and personally poured a bowl of fresh fish soup for Qin Feiyang and the other 4. This made them feel a little flattered. She was too enthusiastic. She didn't treat them as outsiders at all. No. To be exact, it was as if they were her own descendants. Great-grandmother, we can do it ourselves, Qin Feiyang laughed dryly. He was really not used to it. Here, don't treat yourself as outsiders, and don't be so restrained. The old lady said with a smile. Yes. Since we have lived in seclusion here, not to mention outsiders, even the descendants of the Purple Gold Divine Dragon clan have never come to visit us old guys. You are the first. The other 4 old ladies also had a kind face. These words made Qin Feiyang and the others feel particularly embarrassed. Because, their original plan was not to visit these old people at all, but to find trouble. Don't just stand there, try it. The old ladies urged. Okay. Qin Feiyang and the others nodded, picked up their small bowls, took the soup spoons in the bowls, and tasted it carefully. The fish soup was particularly fresh, and the fish was also particularly tender, melting in the mouth. It's delicious. Longqin's eyes lit up, and she finished it in a few mouthfuls. She looked up at the old ladies and said with a smile, Great-grandmother, I want more. It's good that you like it. I'm just afraid that you young people are used to eating delicacies outside and don't like our home-cooked dishes here. An old lady chuckled and personally poured another bowl for Longqin. Qin Feiyang and the others looked at Longqin strangely. This woman was really familiar with them? The word great-grandmother came out of her mouth more smoothly than Qin Feiyang. What are you talking about? Only home-cooked dishes can taste like a monk. Let's talk about it later. Great-grandmother, the dishes cooked by you are really delicious. Longqin chuckled and then hurriedly said, I don't mean to flatter you. How obedient. Whoever marries you is really lucky. The old ladies loved Longqin very much. Obedient? The white-eyed wolf scoffed. You didn't see how she was like when she flipped out. It wouldn't be an exaggeration to call her a tigress. You have a problem with it? Longqin stared at the white-eyed wolf. I don't dare. Who dares to have a problem with you? The white-eyed wolf pouted. Longqin looked at the old ladies with an aggrieved expression and said, Great-grandmother, look, he's always bullying me. The old ladies looked at the white-eyed wolf unkindly and said, Little guy, don't be so ungrateful. White-eyed wolf was stunned. What did he mean by that? Why did they have to talk about this? If you miss this kind of girl, you won't be able to find one in the future. A few old ladies said. Ugh. The white-eyed wolf was completely speechless. Did these old ladies think that he had some sort of ambiguous relationship with this stinky woman? Longqin's cheeks turned red when he heard that. He didn't expect such a misunderstanding to occur. Madman rolled his eyes and laughed. Oh, great-grandmother, you have good eyesight. You can tell at a glance. As she spoke, she winked at the few old ladies. The old ladies looked at Madman's expression and were stunned at first. Then, they came to a realization. He was asking them to set up the white-eyed wolf and Longqin. Madman, don't talk nonsense. The white-eyed wolf and Longqin couldn't help but stare at Madman when they heard that. Did you see that? Where else in the world can you find someone with such tacit understanding? Madman bared his teeth. Longqin's face darkened. Why was it getting worse? How interesting. Boss Ji shook his head and smiled. It's good to be young. Ji Lauer and the others also had a smile on their faces. Swish. But at this moment, a figure appeared in the sky. Everyone was stunned. They looked up at the same time and were stunned. The Lord? Why did this person come over? Ji Shaoi asked the Lord to come. At that time, you and Boss Ji were fighting in the mental world. We were worried about you, so we didn't stop him. Madman transmitted his voice. Ji Shaoi, Qin Feiyang looked at Ji Shaoi, who was sitting next to Ninth Master Ji, and his eyes flashed. Then, he looked at the Lord. He stood in the air and looked down at the joyous scene below. His expression was also extremely astonished. Didn't they say that the situation was critical and asked him to come and help? But now, why was it like this? This didn't look like an enemy at all. It was more like a family gathering together for the new year. Little Wang, why are you standing there in a daze? Since you're here, let's eat together. Boss Ji smiled. Little Wang? Qin Feiyang and the others looked at each other. The Lord actually let others call him by his nickname? And he didn't look angry at all. How interesting. Okay. The Lord nodded instinctively. When he came back to his senses, he regretted it a little. Would it be inappropriate for him to stay on such an occasion? After all, Qin Feiyang and the others were still the enemies of the Divine Kingdom. As the Lord, how could he sit with these people and eat peacefully? However, since he had already agreed, he could only bite the bullet and come down. After coming down, he looked at Ji Shaoi in confusion. Ji Shaoi also had a wry smile on his face. The situation at that time was indeed on the verge of a crisis. But who would have thought that in the end, the group of people sat together to eat and chat, talking and laughing. Even people like Longqin and Madman, who had nothing to do with the purple-gold divine dragon clan, called her great-grandmother. I'll go get the bowls and chopsticks. An old woman stood up. Second young mistress, there's no need to go through so much trouble. The Lord hurriedly said. How are you going to eat without bowls and chopsticks? Are you going to eat with your hands? The second young mistress glared at him, and the Lord immediately lowered his head like an obedient child. When Qin Feiyang and the others saw this scene, they couldn't help but laugh in their hearts. The Lord of the Divine Kingdom also had such a difficult time. Ahem. The Lord coughed and sat next to Boss Ji. Sit over there. Boss Ji pointed to Qin Feiyang's side. Obviously, he intended to let the Lord and Qin Feiyang sit together. The Lord walked to Qin Feiyang with a long face and sat down next to him. He was extremely depressed. Couldn't they see that there were outsiders here? Couldn't they save him some face? Where would his dignity be in the future? Qin Feiyang turned to look at the Lord and said with a smile, Lord of the Divine Kingdom, it's really true that we can sit together and eat. Ha! The Lord put on a fake smile and secretly stared at Qin Feiyang, as if to say, don't take advantage of these old people's support. Qin Feiyang chuckled and gave the white-eyed wolf and Frenzy a look. The two of them understood. Frenzy looked at Boss G and the others and chuckled, "Great-grandfathers, it's rare for us to gather together. Wouldn't it be a bit disappointing if there's no good wine? Great-grandfathers?" The Lord's face darkened. "Who gave you the courage to call these old people like that?" But the point was that Boss G and the others were very happy, which made him feel helpless. "It is indeed a bit disappointing." Ji Laoshi nodded. When it came to wine, his eyes seemed to be shining. The white-eyed wolf also noticed Ji Laoshi's abnormality and hurriedly took out a dozen jars of unparalleled divine wine. He handed one to Ji Laoshi and smiled, "Great-grandpa, this is for you." Ji Laoshi looked at the white-eyed wolf in shock. This kid really knew how to climb up the ladder. Originally, he was still a little dissatisfied with Qin Feiyang and the others. But now, seeing the white-eyed wolf's attitude, the dissatisfaction in his heart disappeared. He happily took the jar of wine and opened it. The smile on his face became even wider. Divine wine. For people of his level, other than divine wine, no other wine could enter his eyes. The white-eyed wolf then gave Boss G and the others a jar of divine wine each. He was no longer as arrogant as before. He looked like an obedient child. Even the Lord was impressed in his heart. These kids really knew how to make people happy. When he compared them to Ji Shaoi, he couldn't help but feel angry. Why was he standing there like a block of wood? Could he learn from Qin Feiyang and the others? "Let's eat." The second young mistress walked out with a set of chopsticks and handed it to the Lord. She then looked at everyone and smiled. "My lord, have a drink." The Frenzy and the white-eyed wolf also sat next to Qin Feiyang. They were very close to the Lord and immediately began to work together to criticize the Lord. "I don't drink." The Lord waved his hand. "You don't drink? Why do I remember that you used to drink often and have a good tolerance for alcohol?" Boss G looked at the Lord suspiciously. "Grandpa, can you not embarrass me? Moreover, that's the past. I'm the Lord now. How can I drink so much?" The Lord was helpless. "So what if you're the Lord? So what if you're the Lord? Moreover, are there outsiders here? Moreover, the juniors respect you. Why are you still acting like this? You're so shy. If you're not used to being here, then hurry up and get lost." Boss G's face darkened. When Qin Feiyang and the others heard this, they looked at the Lord who was livid and their faces turned red. Ordinary people wouldn't have the chance to see the Lord being scolded. Okay. I'll drink. Please calm down." The Lord quickly surrendered. He glared at the Frenzy and the white-eyed wolf and said with a fake smile, "Thank you for thinking highly of me. I'm an old man, that's not right." The white-eyed wolf put down the wine glass with a look of dissatisfaction. "What's wrong?" The Lord frowned. Was he trying to find fault again? Boss G and the others also looked at the white-eyed wolf suspiciously. "That's definitely not right. How are the great-grandfathers and great-grandmothers related to you?" The white-eyed wolf asked. "Nonsense. Everyone knows that they're my grandparents." The Lord said angrily. "That's right. In front of your grandparents, you call yourself an old man. Is that right?" The white-eyed wolf asked. The Lord was stunned. How could he find fault with that? "Kid, you're an expert at finding fault. There's indeed something wrong with your words. In front of us old men, you call yourself an old man. Then, where do you put us, the real old men?" Ji Laoshi nodded. "Lord 10, can you not join in the fun?" The Lord had a bitter feeling in his heart. Couldn't he tell that the golden-winged Wolf King and the Frenzy were teaming up to attack him and humiliate him? Chapter 4094. You said something wrong and you won't let others say it? Ji Laoshi raised his eyebrows. No, no. It's my fault, it's all my fault. The monarch hurriedly waved his hand. The white-eyed wolf laughed and said, since the monarch already knows his mistake, then be self-conscious and punish yourself with 3 jars. What? 3 jars? The monarch was stunned. Yes. For a person of your status, if you only punish yourself with 3 cups, it's purely a humiliation to you. Don't worry, we have enough divine wine. The white-eyed wolf bared his teeth. The monarch's face was dark as he stared at the white-eyed wolf. The white-eyed wolf didn't care. He smiled and took out 3 jars of divine wine, placed them in front of the monarch, and said with a smile, "It's the rules of the underworld, please." You win. The monarch snorted coldly. Holding a wine jar, he got up, raised his head and gulped it down. This is a family banquet. You can't use your divine power to refine the alcohol, otherwise, it will be disrespectful to your great-grandparents. The lunatic said. Hearing this, the monarch was so angry that he was about to go crazy. How can you drink like this? Seeing this, the second young mistress wanted to stop them. Don't bother about them. Ji Laoshi stopped her. The second young mistress looked at him suspiciously. Do you think we can't see that these 2 guys are deliberately targeting Xiaofan? But this is good. Although they are full of gunpowder now, when they drink too much later, they will definitely put their arms around each other's shoulders and call each other brothers. Ji Laoshi laughed secretly. That's true. The second young mistress nodded. There was nothing between men that a glass of wine couldn't solve. If they could take this opportunity to solve the feud between Qin Feiyang and the Purple Gold Divine Dragon clan, it would be a merit. So, the few old ladies didn't ask anymore. Not only did Boss Ji and the others not ask, but they also joined in the fun. Now that the atmosphere had reached this point, Qin Feiyang was too embarrassed to refuse. He also drank 1 cup after another. As expected. In the end, the white-eyed wolf and the madman chased Qin Feiyang away and sat on the left and right of the king. The 3 of them put their arms around each other's shoulders and called each other brothers, completely letting themselves go. Ji Laoshi also ran to Qin Feiyang's side and sat down. He shook his head and asked, Feiyang, tell me honestly. Which generation of little Qing's descendant are you? Even the way they addressed him had changed. This, Qin Feiyang was not drunk yet. Although he didn't like drinking, he still had a decent amount of alcohol. Furthermore, he didn't drink much. After pondering for a while, he looked at Ji Laoshi and said, great-grandfather's generation, grandfather's generation, father's generation. I can be considered the 4th generation. You're already a 4th-generation descendant? Then wouldn't there be many descendants of little Qing in the sky cloud realm? Ji Laoshi was surprised. There used to be quite a lot. Because the Qin clan is the royal family of the great Qin dynasty. For example, my father, as the emperor of the great Qin dynasty, had 3 palaces and 6 courtyards and many children. Qin Feiyang smiled. What do you mean by this? Ji Laoshi was taken aback. Several old ladies also looked at Qin Feiyang suspiciously. When I was young, I was too vicious and killed many brothers and sisters. But now, I still have several brothers and sisters. I guess they are all married now. And even have many children and grandchildren. Qin Feiyang laughed dryly. Don't blame yourself. I can see that you are a kind and righteous child. Those who died in your hands must be people who deserve to die. Moreover, who isn't young and frivolous? Back then, your grandfather, was also lawless. Ji Laoshi patted his chest and said proudly. Don't talk about your past. Back then, you were an unfilial descendant. It was only later that you slowly restrained yourself after you got married and established a family. Also, he is the 4th-generation descendant of Little Qing. In front of us, he is already the 6th generation. No, the 7th generation, but before old Ji finished speaking, Ji Laoshi waved his hand and said, "Who cares which generation he is, anyway, he is our descendant. In the future, you can call us great-grandfather and great-grandmother, okay?" "Okay, okay, okay." Qin Feiyang nodded. Since the elders said so, what else could he say? The next day, after Qin Feiyang woke up, he found himself lying on an unfamiliar bed. Mu Qing was also beside him. But he had not woken up yet. He was wearing a pair of big pants, sprawled on the ground, and reeked of alcohol. It seemed that he was also very drunk. Lying down was fine, but when he got up, he suddenly felt a pain in his head as if it was being torn apart. "The divine wine is still on my head?" Qin Feiyang rubbed his forehead. "No matter how good the wine is, it will go to the head if you drink too much." A kind voice sounded. The second young mistress walked in with 2 sets of clean clothes in her hand. She handed one of them to Qin Feiyang. Qin Feiyang took the clothes in a daze. These were not his clothes? He quickly looked down at himself. It turned out that he was only wearing a pair of big pants like Mu Qing. "Don't be embarrassed. In my eyes, you are just a little kid." The second young mistress shook her head and laughed. She put the remaining set of clothes neatly on the cabinet beside the bed and said, "When this little guy wakes up, ask him to put it on." "Okay." Qin Feiyang rubbed the back of his head and laughed dryly. Looking at Qin Feiyang's silly look, the second young mistress couldn't help laughing and said, "You rest for a while. I'll cook some porridge for you drunkards." "Thank you, great-grandmother." Qin Feiyang quickly thanked her. "You're welcome. Treat this place as your home." The second young mistress smiled and turned to walk out of the room with a kind smile. "My home," Qin Feiyang whispered. He didn't expect to meet such a group of kind old people. They really gave him a strong sense of belonging. He picked up the clothes in his hand and sniffed them. A smile appeared on his face. There was no smell of alcohol. Instead, there was a hint of fragrance. Obviously, the second young mistress washed them for him. This reminded him of the scene when his mother washed and cooked for him when he was a child. It was heartwarming. "My head hurts," at this time. Mu Qing's voice sounded. Qin Feiyang turned his head and saw Mu Qing pressing her forehead and slowly getting up. "Wake up." Qin Feiyang smiled. Mu Qing was stunned. She looked up at Qin Feiyang. Seeing Qin Feiyang sitting next to her and only wearing a pair of big pants, she couldn't help but shiver. Then he looked at himself again. He was also only wearing a pair of big pants. His face suddenly changed and he said angrily, "What did you do to me?" Moreover, he also dragged the quilt and wrapped himself tightly, as if guarding against a wolf. Qin Feiyang's mouth twitched. This kid's imagination was too rich. "I'm not interested in men." Rolling his eyes, Qin Feiyang got up and quickly put on his clothes. He looked at Mu Qing speechlessly and said, "Your clothes are on the side." Mu Qing looked at the clothes on the cabinet next to her and frowned. "What happened?" "I don't know either. They were all drunk. But the clothes were sent by my great-grandmother. She should have helped to wash them," Qin Feiyang said with a faint smile. Hearing this, Mu Qing grabbed the clothes and put them on the tip of her nose to smell the fragrance. She was a little stunned for a moment. "What's wrong?" Qin Feiyang didn't understand. "I haven't smelled this smell for a long time. It's just like when my mother washed my clothes for me when I was young. I miss it so much." Mu Qing murmured. A mist of tears appeared in her eyes. Qin Feiyang looked at Mu Qing silently for a moment, nodded and sighed. Yes, I miss it so much. Mu Qing wiped away her tears, put on her clothes, and said with a smile, "What do you feel about the old people in this village?" "Comfortable, warm. There's a sense of belonging." Qin Feiyang smiled slightly. "Not to mention you, even I have this sense of belonging. It's a pity that I'm not a descendant of the purple gold divine dragon clan. What happened yesterday was just a dream." Mu Qing shook her head and sighed. To be honest, she was quite envious of Qin Feiyang. In the sky cloud realm, there were relatives like the Feather Emperor and the Princess of the Divine Kingdom. In Great Qin, there were great-grandfathers, grandfathers, parents, and brothers. Now, in the Divine Kingdom, there were these people who shared the same bloodline. But what about him? Apart from his ancestors, he had no relatives around him. Qin Feiyang was silent for a moment and said with a smile, "Don't think like that. As long as you're willing, we're all your relatives." Hearing this, Mu Qing looked up at Qin Feiyang and was stunned for a long time. She snorted coldly and said, "Don't be narcissistic. Who's willing to be your relatives?" Qin Feiyang shook his head and laughed. It seemed that this drink not only eased the conflict between him and the Purple Gold Divine Dragon clan, but also completely let Mu Qing let go of the past. This drink was worth it. Mu Qing put on her clothes and shook her head. But then again, this drink was a little risky. Risky? Qin Feiyang was stunned. That's right. Mu Qing nodded and said in a low voice, "If they wanted to harm us, we would have become corpses when we were drunk yesterday." Qin Feiyang smiled in realization and said, "Aren't we fine now? This means that they really don't have any malicious intentions towards us." Mu Qing said with a smile. "Yes. Put yourself in their shoes. They're so kind to us. We can't be rash. Let's go and wash up. Let me tell you, you should really feel honored. It's the first time I've drunk so much wine since I was born." Qin Feiyang smiled. "Oh. I thought it was something else. Honored? How about I spoil your appetite? With your little alcohol tolerance, I can kill you in seconds." Mu Qing looked at him with disdain. The two of them walked out of the room, talking and laughing. They immediately saw 10 old men sitting at the entrance of the village, drinking tea and chatting leisurely. "Good morning, great-grandfathers." Qin Feiyang waved and smiled. "Good morning." The 10 old men turned to look at Qin Feiyang and Mu Qing, and then looked at the sky and said speechlessly, "It's already noon. Is it still early? It seems that you're not awake yet." Qin Feiyang and Mu Qing quickly looked up at the sky. The sun was indeed hanging in the sky. Mu Qing kicked Qin Feiyang and looked at the 10 old men embarrassedly. He whispered, "This is a little awkward. If you're awkward, why did you kick me? That's not it. There are people who woke up later than us." Qin Feiyang glared at him angrily. Mu Qing was stunned and quickly scanned the village. He really didn't see the white-eyed wolf, the lunatic, or the monarch. They should still be sleeping soundly. Because the three of them drank the most yesterday. The error-free chapters of Immortal God of War will continue to be updated on the hand-fighting bar. There are no advertisements on the website. Please bookmark and recommend the hand-fighting bar. Chapter 4095. The two of them walked to the river and washed their faces. The cool river water and fresh air made them feel refreshed. Mu Qing smiled and said, "If one day I can live in such a place with my wife and children by my side, how good would that be? You also yearn for such a life?" Qin Feiyang looked at Mu Qing in surprise. He had always thought that Mu Qing wanted a life of luxury and luxury. He didn't expect that he would have such a feeling now. Who doesn't yearn for such a life? Fighting for fame and fortune is just a dream when I was young. Now, it's long past that time. Mu Qing shook his head. Qin Feiyang was stunned. It turned out that this was Mu Qing's true side. Qin Feiyang looked up at the sky and said with a smile, "This day will come sooner or later. When the time comes, we old guys will also get together and drink tea and chat when we have nothing to do. Won't life be happy? How old are you and you're already thinking about enjoying your old age?" Boss G and the others, who were sitting at the entrance of the village, couldn't help but roll their eyes when they heard the conversation. Qin Feiyang turned to look at the group of people and shook his head with a smile. "Although in your eyes, we are still children, in fact, we are not young anymore." Mu Qing also said, "If it were ordinary people, at our age, we would have many children and grandchildren. Unfortunately, you are not ordinary people. You have the strongest fighting soul, so you must bear the responsibility of protecting the world." Boss G said. "That's right. Isn't there a saying that goes like this? The stronger the ability, the greater the responsibility." Boss G chuckled. "Responsibility," Qin Feiyang and Mu Qing murmured. If possible, they really didn't want to bear such a big responsibility. But there was no other way. After all, fate had chosen them. The two of them walked to a group of old people. Boss G poured 2 cups of tea and looked at the two of them with a smile. "This tea has the effect of sobering up. Try it." "Okay." The two of them nodded. At this moment, the door of another wooden building opened and Ji Shaoi walked out, reeking of alcohol. But when he saw Qin Feiyang and Mu Qing at the entrance of the village, his expression immediately stiffened. Then, without saying anything, he ran to wash up. Qin Feiyang took a sip of the tea and lowered his head to ponder. Suddenly, he looked at Boss G and the others and asked, "Great-grandfathers, what we talked about yesterday, right? A man's words carry enormous weight. Of course they count." Boss G. Qin Feiyang heaved a sigh of relief. He was afraid that they wouldn't keep their word the next day. However, thinking about it, this group of elders wasn't the kind of people who would go back on their word. He asked, then, "Have you thought about how to test them?" "I just woke up, how would I have time to think?" Qin Feiyang looked at the group of old men expectantly. "For the sake of fairness, we can't let Ji Shaoi and Dong Zhengyang know about this test first." Boss Ji looked at Ji Shaoi, who was squatting by the river, and said secretly. After a while, Qin Feiyang and Mu Qing listened for a moment and nodded. "We agree. We'll start after lunch. As long as you don't have any objections. Anyway, this time, the opportunity is equal. It depends on their own luck and choice." Boss G sighed. "Okay." Qin Feiyang nodded and said with a smile, "Boss G, when will you take me to your tea garden? You're interested in tea too?" Boss G was stunned. "A little. I mainly want to learn about tea culture." He was not being modest. He said it deliberately. Because he did not want Boss G to know that he was obsessed with tea. Otherwise, Boss G would definitely guard against him like Long Chen did. He also wanted to see if there was a chance to take away a few tea trees. "Okay. When the test is over, I'll take you to the tea garden and explain it to you." Boss G chuckled. He did not suspect anything. He still did not know Qin Feiyang well enough. Because if he did, he would never dare to take him to the tea garden. "Where's Long Qin? Why don't I see her?" Mu Qing glanced at the village suspiciously. Boss G chuckled and said, "This girl got up early in the morning and is helping your great-grandmother's cook." It seemed that he approved of Long Qin very much. "She's helping to cook?" Mu Qing was stunned. Qin Feiyang was also surprised. This was simply unprecedented. "Yes. Is there a problem?" The 10 old men looked at them in confusion. Of course there's a problem. Mu Qing nodded and said, she's being, ahem. But at this time, Qin Feiyang coughed hard and interrupted Mu Qing. Mu Qing was stunned and couldn't help but shudder. It was a close call. He almost exposed the identity of Long Qin. What are you doing? Boss Ji and the others looked at Qin Feiyang suspiciously. Nothing. Maybe I drank too much wine and my throat is a little uncomfortable. Qin Feiyang waved his hand, picked up the teacup, and secretly glared at Mu Qing. He'd better be careful with his words. Mu Qing also held the teacup and secretly smiled at Qin Feiyang. Boss Ji turned to look at Mu Qing and asked, what did you say about the girl in Long Qin? Mu Qing laughed dryly and said, she's a rich young lady and has never done these things. I'm thinking, is the food she cooks edible? So it's like this. I thought there was some secret. Boss Ji shook his head and laughed. Mu Qing also laughed. A big man actually speaks ill of others behind their backs. At this time, Long Qin came out with 2 side dishes. She looked like a good girl who could go to the hall and the kitchen. Did you hear me? Mu Qing was a little embarrassed. There's nothing wrong with my ears. Long Qin snorted and put the 2 side dishes on the table. She said proudly, don't look down on me. Look at these 2 side dishes. I cooked them myself. Don't you feel that they look, smell, and taste good? Cooked by yourself? Are you sure? Qin Feiyang and Mu Qing didn't believe it. They got up and ran over. Regardless of the presence of the elders, they reached out to grab the side dishes and put them in their mouths to taste. Seeing this, Boss Ji and the others looked at each other and smiled. These little guys really didn't have any rules at all. How could they grab it with their hands? However, this seemed to be friendly. There was no sense of restraint. It also showed that these guys had completely integrated here and didn't regard themselves as outsiders. How is it? Long Qin looked at Qin Feiyang and Mu Qing. Not bad. The 2 savored for a while and nodded. The taste was indeed good. They really didn't know that this woman had such ability. Are you sure you cooked it? Qin Feiyang was doubtful. Of course. Long Qin nodded and turned away proudly. Unexpected, too unexpected. Qin Feiyang shook his head. It seemed that he had to get to know this woman again in the future. Ancestor. After washing up, Ji Shaoi came to Boss Ji and the others and bowed. Yes. Boss Ji nodded and pointed at Qin Feiyang and Mu Qing. He smiled and said, in fact, we don't have the right to criticize you. But for your own good, in the future, you really have to learn more from them. Learn from them? Ji Shaoi looked at the 2 who were still sneaking and couldn't help but frown slightly. How could they do this in front of the elders? Generally speaking, their behavior is indeed a little impolite. But you have to know that there are no outsiders here. If you are polite, it will seem a little estranged. Let's not talk about other things. Think about it. Aren't you also so unrestrained when you are with your parents? Ji Laoshe laughed hoarsely. Ji Shaoi was silent. Indeed. Whether it was when they were young or when they grew up, as long as they were with their parents, they would often reach out their naughty little hands and steal the dishes on the table. Although their parents would scold them, they would still dote on them the most. Now, Qin Feiyang and the others were here. They didn't feel restrained at all when they were with these elders. It was as if they were back at home and they could do whatever they wanted. However, facing these elders in front of them, Qin Feiyang and the others could do it without restraint, but he really couldn't do it. Because he was too clear about the identity and strength of these elders. It was as if a mountain was pressing on his head. He didn't dare to be so willful at all. Seriously. At this moment, he really admired Qin Feiyang and the others. Facing these terrifying elders, there was no pressure at all. Are you still eating? If you continue eating, there won't be any left later. Long Qin came out with 2 side dishes. Looking at Qin Feiyang and the others who were eating with relish at the table, he suddenly shouted angrily. This was outrageous. Did he still think that they were children? There's no other way. Who asked you to cook so well? The 2 laughed dryly. Hearing these compliments, Longqin's expression became much more pleasant and he was a little complacent. True enough. To conquer a man, one had to conquer his stomach first. What's delicious? Suddenly, accompanied by a suspicious voice, White-Eyed Wolf and Lunatic came out from another small building. The bandits have come out of their lair. Long Qin muttered. White-Eyed Wolf, Lunatic, come here quickly. There's big news. Mu Qing waved his hand. What news? The 2 rubbed their aching foreheads and walked over with the smell of alcohol. Mu Qing bared his teeth and said, Look, this is Longqin's dish. You didn't expect that she actually knows how to cook. Really? The 2 suddenly stared at Long Qin as if they had discovered a new continent. You haven't seen the world. Long Qin snorted coldly and stared at the 4 of them. I'm warning you, don't eat secretly anymore. After saying that, he turned and walked into the kitchen. You told me not to eat secretly, so I won't eat secretly. White-Eyed Wolf stretched out his hand sneakily, picked up a piece of wild vegetable and stuffed it into his mouth. His eyes suddenly lit up and he nodded. It's really good. Really? Then I have to try it. Lunatic was skeptical. If you said that Long Qin was rude, he would believe it. But if you said that she cooked, it was a little unbelievable. This group of kids, looking at this scene, Ji Laosher and the others looked helpless, but their faces were full of smiles. Some old people were more serious and had to follow the rules in everything. But they were more easygoing old people. Not only did they not dislike it, but they liked this casual and harmonious atmosphere. Chapter 4096. In other words, the way to get along depends on the person. If you were so unrestrained in front of a serious person, it would naturally cause the other party to be dissatisfied. Similarly, if you were polite and cautious in front of a more easygoing person, it would also cause the other party to be uncomfortable. Therefore, this way of getting along was also a skill. After lunch, the monarch woke up. The first feeling he had when he woke up was that his head was about to explode. Yo! Little brother Wang, you're awake. The White-Eyed Wolf immediately looked at the monarch and grinned. The monarch's full name was Ji Yun Wang. The monarch's face suddenly darkened as he stared at the White-Eyed Wolf angrily and said angrily, Little Wang is something you can call? You have no respect for your elders. So heartless. Yesterday you called me Brother Wolf. The White-Eyed Wolf sighed sadly. Did I? The monarch looked at everyone in a daze. Yes. Boss Ji and the others nodded. The corner of the monarch's mouth twitched. Drinking was indeed a waste of time. Thinking about yesterday, we put our arms around each other's shoulders. Bah, it's not like we're in cahoots. What are we doing? It should be said that we felt like old friends at first sight and regretted that we didn't meet earlier. In the end, when you woke up, you turned your back on me. It's really disappointing. The White-Eyed Wolf shook his head and sighed, looking very distressed, which made the monarch gnash his teeth in anger. The madman looked at the monarch and bared his teeth. Little brother Wang, how about we continue? Scram! The monarch shouted angrily. Still drinking? If he continued to drink, who knew what kind of joke he would make? As the monarch, he couldn't afford to lose face. The second young mistress looked at the monarch kindly and smiled. I left some food for you. Go wash up first and eat quickly. Thank you, second young mistress. The monarch smiled. Boss Ji looked at Qin Feiyang and said, then let's begin. All right. Qin Feiyang nodded. Begin? The monarch was slightly stunned and looked at the two of them suspiciously. Qin Feiyang waved his hand and Dong Zhengyang appeared. Immediately, Dong Zhengyang became the center of attention. Everyone looked at him curiously. Dong Zhengyang himself was a little confused. What was going on? However, very soon, he felt a sense of disgust and rejection from the depths of his soul. Old enemy. His heart trembled, and he immediately scanned the crowd. Finally, his gaze locked onto Ji Shaoyi. Meanwhile, Ji Shaoyi also clearly felt a sense of disgust from Dong Zhengyang. When old enemies met, it was destined that only one of them would be favored by fate. But he didn't know if it was Dong Zhengyang or Ji Shaoyi. The king frowned and looked at Boss Ji and the others in confusion. He asked, "What are you doing?" Ji Laoshi said, "We've already come to an agreement with Qin Feiyang. The two of them will have a fair fight, and neither side will help the other. Whoever emerges victorious will control the Eye of Destiny." What? The monarch stood up abruptly and said angrily, "How can you treat such an important matter as child's play? This is not child's play. We are all serious." Ji Laoshi said solemnly. Ninth Master. The king hurriedly looked at Ninth Master. "This is also my intention." Ninth Master looked at the king and said. The king's expression froze. Why did it become like this? Moreover, they didn't even discuss such an important matter with him. When Ji Shaoyi and Dong Zhengyang heard this, they couldn't help but be stunned. Using a duel to determine the owner of the Eye of Destiny? It seemed like child's play. However, Dong Zhengyang knew Qin Feiyang well. Since Qin Feiyang made such a decision, there must be a reason. Boss Ji looked at Ji Shaoyi and Dong Zhengyang and asked, "Do you have any opinions about this matter?" Ancestor, Ji Shaoyi wanted to say something but stopped. "If you have something to say, just say it." Boss Ji said. "Okay. Then I'll say it. I don't agree with your decision. Why should our fate be at your mercy? At the very least, you should have told us about this matter in advance." Ji Shaoyi said angrily. "Aren't we discussing this with you? If we really wanted to control you, why would we need to ask for your opinion now? If you don't agree, we won't force you." Boss Ji said. Ji Shaoyi fell silent. The 10 old men looked at each other and then at Dong Zhengyang. Dong Zhengyang looked at Ji Shaoyi and then at the 10 old men and said with a smile, "I trust Qin Feiyang." It was just a simple sentence, but it made the 10 of them sigh with emotion. This was the difference. Dong Zhengyang and Qin Feiyang weren't related by blood, but the trust between them was more than anything. They looked at Ji Shaoyi again. Although Ji Shaoyi was their descendant, he didn't trust them at all. From this, one could see the nature of the two. Dong Zhengyang was more reliable. Boss Ji said lightly, "Ji Shaoyi, you can take your time to think about it." "There's no need to think about it. I don't want to." Ji Shaoyi shook his head. "You don't have the courage to fight? Or you don't have the confidence to defeat Dong Zhengyang?" Boss Ji frowned. "You have the ability to protect me. Why should I fight him? Are you all on these outsiders' side?" Ji Shaoyi said angrily. The king's expression changed, and he shouted, "Don't be rude." "Huh!" Boss Ji laughed loudly, looked at Ji Shaoyi, and said, "You're right. Yes, we do have the ability to protect you, but why should we protect you? Because I'm your descendant." Ji Shaoyi said matter-of-factly. "What a good bloodline. It's also a matter of course. But let me tell you, nothing in this world can be taken for granted. Protecting you is out of kindness. Not protecting you is out of duty. As a direct descendant of the Purple Gold Divine Dragon clan, you don't even have the courage to face the enemy head-on. Do you think such a person is worthy of our protection? Boss Ji was furious, his face full of disappointment. Ji Shaoi lowered his head and clenched his fists. If you have the courage, guts, even if you lose this battle and lose the Eye of Destiny, we will keep you by our side and nurture you with all our might. With us nurturing you personally, you won't lose to the other prodigies, even if you don't become the strongest person in the Divine Kingdom in the future. But your current performance is really disappointing. The Purple Gold Divine Dragon clan has always been bold and never hide behind others. You're the first. You've really brought honor to the Purple Gold Divine Dragon clan. Fine. We won't force you. From now on, you can do whatever you want. Everything has nothing to do with us. Boss Ji waved his hand, his eyes full of coldness. If Dong Zhengyang was very strong and made you fear him, it would be reasonable. But now, no one knew exactly how strong Dong Zhengyang was, yet he had chosen to retreat directly. Wasn't this the behavior of a coward? How valuable could such a person be? Sigh. Boss Ji sighed. He was also disappointed. Compared to Dong Zhengyang, who was calm and composed, Ji Shaoi was indeed much weaker. Just this point alone was enough to determine the owner of the Eye of Destiny. Apologize. The king glared at Ji Shaoi. Angering this group of elders was equivalent to angering the entire Purple Gold Divine Dragon clan. At that time, one word from them would be enough to make you unable to make a comeback. Although he was also a little dissatisfied with the elders' decision, Ji Shaoi's performance was indeed disappointing. Ji Shaoi was at a loss. There's no need to apologize. Actually, this is the first test for you all. Boss Ji waved his hand and looked at Dong Zhengyang and Ji Shaoi. Test. The two were stunned. That's right. It's a test of your courage and courage. The difference between the two of you is like heaven and earth. One of you is calm and has unconditional trust in the people around you. The other is hysterical and complaining. So the outcome of this first test has already been decided. Boss Ji sighed. Dong Zhengyang was enlightened. However, when Ji Shaoi heard this, he was stunned. So this was a test and not a real duel. If he had known earlier, he would not have been afraid. However, if he had known earlier, what was the point of this test? Ji Shaoi knew that this could not go on. He asked, "What's the second test?" This was because these elders were already very disappointed in him. If he did not take the initiative to perform, he would really be abandoned. He did not dare to imagine the outcome of being abandoned by these elders. These elders' status in the Purple Gold Divine Dragon clan was so high that even the king had to be respectful. As long as they said something, the king would not dare to help him even if he wanted to. When that happened, he would undoubtedly become an abandoned pawn. Without the protection of the Purple Gold Divine Dragon clan, he might not even be able to keep his life against Qin Feiyang and the others, let alone the Eye of Destiny. After all, it was too easy for Qin Feiyang and the others to deal with him. Aren't you unwilling? Why are you asking so many questions? Ji Shaoi frowned. Ji Shaoi lowered his head, his face full of regret. The king could not bear to see him like this. He smiled and said, "Second grandfather, please give him another chance." Ji Shaoi raised his eyebrows and snorted. "I've already said that this is a test. If we continue now, what's the point of this test? The test must be carried out without the knowledge of the person involved." Yes. I understand. However, Ji Shaoi might have been a little flustered before this and lost his composure. The king smiled apologetically. Yes. This time, regardless of whether this is a test or not, I will accept it. Ji Shaoyi nodded hurriedly. Is that so? Ji Shaoyi looked at him. Yes. Ji Shaoyi nodded. All right. Since you insist, then let's have a real duel. Ji Shaoyi said. A duel? Ji Shaoyi was stunned. He thought that this was some other test. He did not expect them to really have a duel. You don't dare? Ji Shaoyi frowned. Ji Shaoyi looked at the king. What are you afraid of? Show me some backbone. The king shouted. Ji Shaoyi glanced at Dong Zhengyang and gritted his teeth. He looked at the group of old men and nodded. All right, I'll duel with him. Ji Shaoyi's eyes flashed as he said, the rules are as follows. You are not allowed to use your sovereign divine weapon, activate your ultimate intent, or harm your opponent's life. All right. Dong Zhengyang nodded. However, Ji Shaoyi could not help but frown. He said in confusion, you can't even activate your sovereign divine weapon or ultimate intent, and you can't even harm your opponent's life. How can this be considered a duel? We have our own ideas. You just have to do as we say. Ji Shaoyi waved his hand and a 10,000 zhang barrier appeared in the sky. He said indifferently, let's begin. You're tuning into the Xiaofan's Wuxia Tales YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.